Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. And we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. So those of you who can stand, please do so. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, roll call.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
Trustee Ruggles.
Here.
Clerk Noble here. Supervisor Kowal.
Here.
Treasurer Roman.
Here.
Trustee Powell.
Here.
Trustee Voorhees.
Present.
Okay. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Supervisor, make a motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion by Mr. Noble, support from Mr. Roman. All in favor? Aye. The ayes have it. Next item is public comment. Public comment is generally for items that are not, I repeat, are not on the agenda. This board has decided that when the agenda items are there, we usually have a little conversation, or if people want questions answered, we try to address them at that time. So again, at this particular time, you'll be allowed 3 minutes. You have to come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the recorder, and you'll have 3 minutes to state your business. Any takers at this time?
Lady back there, Rick. Oh, the lady. She can't talk.
Good evening. My name's Barb Pilata, and I live at 5445 Ridge Trail North in Clarkston, and I'm the Republican candidate for Oakland County Clerk, but I'm not here to campaign. I'm actually here to talk about some enacted and pending election legislation, and also what I've learned over the last 90 days from voters. So I'd like to share some of that with you if I could. Recently, I have been working with Senator Runstad on a couple of pieces of legislation. Clerk Noble probably is familiar with it. One is the recent enactment of Senate Bill 603 and 604. What that essentially did was give a lot of the authority from the county board of canvassers to the state. I look at that as we're losing local control, which I find offensive and inappropriate. We need to hold on to that. And I'd like to commend you. I was at the meeting, Supervisor Kowal, when you spoke about the CIA situation, and I want to commend all of you that you did a remarkable thing when you made your decision on that, not to go down that road. Also, I'd like to speak about Senate Bill 401, and there are 3 other bills tied to that. And basically what that does is it reenacts the Voting Rights Act from 1969. I won't go into a lot of detail, but I'll throw out a couple words that they use in it. As you know, when people write legislation lately, I wouldn't say always, they're experts in euphemisms and linguistics. So they refer to the people in this bill as the protected class, which right away that disenfranchises a lot of people. They also put the clerks on the line. The burden of proof, when a voter claims to be disenfranchised, the burden of proof is on the clerk to prove that they weren't. They don't have to prove any evidence. Also, another piece of that is they're working with the courts to, and it's in the legislation, to expedite those claims. So it's a lot to read. That one's still pending. They're not doing anything with it right now. But going back to Senate Bill 603 and 604, the Board of Canvassers at the state level, they're working on the rules because they operate on not only under legislation, but rules. And I'm helping them kind of weed through that, not the legislatures, but Senator Runstad and his team. And they have words in there similar to like, I can't think of it offhand, innocent human error. Have you ever heard of such a thing? It's human error. So there's things in there like that. They're loosening the rules for the state also in terms of investigating fraud. And I'm really upset about it. But lastly, I'd like to talk about the voters, which I know you have a lot of experience with that. But in this election cycle particularly, I've seen a lot of voters who are complacent and have apathy. And I've never seen that in my career. Oops, well, I guess I should tie up. But anyways, thank you for indulging me. Read those bills, and thanks again.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time? Okay, I'm closing public comment. Moving on to consent agenda. Consent agenda is a list of bills, revenues, checks, disbursements, department reports as such. And I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Yes, Mr. Roman?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
I have motion approved.
Support.
I have support from Mr. Ruggles. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And just a little quickie for everyone here. I'd like to do the hats off to Mr. Roman, who knows where to put the money for the township, and our interest income last month was hovering in the $70,000 range, so that's really good investing on his part on the township's behalf. So I'd like to commend you for that, Mr. Roman. Did a great job. All right. Next item, item 7A, B, and C, the approval of the minutes of the special board meeting July 1st, the special board meeting July 10th, and the regular board meeting on July 16th. Any questions or comments from any of the board members or late corrections?
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the minutes as submitted.
I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. Looking for support?
Support.
I have a motion from Mr. Powell, support from Andrew Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Public hearing to hear public comments regarding a special assessment district known emergency sewer connections 2024-02. Periodically from time to time, generally about twice a year, this board has a process for special sewer hookups for persons that have sewer available whose system may have been condemned, their septic system may have been condemned by a sanitarian, and they are stuck kind of like between a rock and a hard place, and they have to get hooked up to the sewer. So it was this board's wisdom a few years back to set up a program that would allow for that to happen. So this is a kind of a regular action here. So at this public hearing, we will hear comments. So at this time, I am making a motion to open the public hearing to hear public comments regarding the special assessment district known as Emergency Sewer Connections 2024-02. That is
Support.
in form of a motion. I have support. Roll call vote.
Supervisor Kowal?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles?
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees?
Yes.
Trustee Powell?
Yes.
Treasurer Roman?
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes.
We are now in public comment regarding the special assessment district known as emergency sewer hookup connections. Anyone have any comment at this time? Seeing no comment, I'm making a motion to close the public hearing. Looking for support?
Support.
I have motion, I have support from trustee Liz Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public hearing is closed. Next item, new business, resolution 24-040 to establish and maintain special assessment district, pay costs associated therewith, and to approve the plans and estimates costs, and therefore to be known as Emergency Sewer Connections 2024-02. And this is the actual action on that public hearing item. Mr. Hebert, our assessor.
Good evening. This is the second resolution in a three resolution process to confirm the special assessment district that you just held the first public hearing on without comment. With your review and approval of the establishment, we'll move forward with notifying the three properties involved that will have the confirmation hearing on September 17th, and you do another public hearing and one more resolution.
All right. Questions or comments from the board? I think we're pretty good. I think we understand the process of this. Thank you very much. And I am looking for a motion. Mr. Powell?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, I move approval of Resolution 24040 for the establishment of the Special Assessment District for the Emergency Sewer Connections.
I have a motion. Looking for support.
Support.
Ms. Andrew Voorhees, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Very good. 9B, request to approve Lakes Area Co-Responders Program. Chief, you have something to put before us.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'm going to try to talk a little as possible because I have a subject matter expert from Oakland County Health Network here are going to talk about the co-responder program. As you guys recall, about 3 or 4 years ago, Jeff Wade came in and gave a speech in reference to a program with Common Ground that allowed us to interact with Common Ground. The the next day or a few days later to get the people who are either in a substance abuse crisis or a mental health crisis and have them interact with each other to get them the services that they needed. That program has since it's just disbanded because the funding dried up. And so we always try to find different and innovative ways to help the citizens of White Lake who need the help and get them the help so they can be successful and White Lake residents can flourish. So instead of me blathering on, I'm going to bring up Hillary and Lisa from Oakland County Health Network to talk about the co-responder program. And then I'll say a few words after they're done.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Hillary Nussbaum. I'm a co-responder clinician, and this is Lisa, and she's going to pass you guys out a handout just for your own reference point moving forward. So when I speak and then even after, so I'm a co-responder clinician with Auburn Hills, Bloomfield Township, Birmingham, and the city of Rochester, and I also am a supervisor for the co-responder program. I just wanted to give you a little bit of data, some information just about the success of the program so far here in Oakland County. We currently have 7 co-responders in 11 different agencies, police agencies across Oakland County. With hopefully the addition of 4 more, assuming that it passes, so that would make 15 agencies and then 9 co-responders. Currently, we started our program back in August of 2021. We've been running now for 3 years. And a lot of our data, the handout that you got will show that we've had a total of essentially 3,700 referrals from police officers for us to follow up with individuals or families with mental health concerns. That number was from May. Now to August, we're looking at about 4,100 referrals. That doesn't include our on-scene presence. So just a little information about what we do. We will ride in our own vehicle. We respond to scenes with police. We carry a prep radio just like police. And I'm a social worker, so we show up to the scene and we help police with mental health concerns, providing resources then and now. They're right in the present moment for individuals. So that looks like not only just taking them to the emergency room, but creating safety plans with them, taking them to common ground if we can, those types of things, contacting caseworkers, therapists, those kinds of things, making sure they have enough resources to sustain them and get them the actual help that they need. The goal of the program is, of course, jail diversion as well. If we can keep someone from going into the justice system, that's our goal, is to get them the correct resources, not just going to jail. If they were to go to jail, if they were to get arrested, we have additional resources within the jail as well to get them support. So that's where we as co-responders can reach out to our liaisons that are held in the jail to make sure that that person gets the support there too. So we have a lot of liaisons sort of across the spectrum working with us. So that individual doesn't just get a one-time shot at getting help from me when I'm on the scene with police. There's additional steps along the way where we can get them that help. Just a couple little other pieces of data. Right now, we work collaboratively, with Wayne State University, who looks at our outcome data to make sure that is this program actually effective. And some points that they found that I think are very interesting, and this might not be on your sheet, but I am going to let you know what they did find. When you have co-responders on board at a scene, they attempt to link someone up with resources 100% of the time, as opposed to law enforcement. From our data, which showed 7% of the time that linkage was actually successful, linking them to mental health resources, within that time period. How did we link them up? 75% of the time were follow-up appointments made. We were able to contact a caseworker. We were able to contact someone who could, sometimes our OCHN's access department, which would get them those resources that they need. So 75% of the time they had follow-up appointments versus only 7% of the time attempts from police to link up. And that's no discredit to police. It's just the lack of knowledge about the resources that are available to them. And that's one of the things we can offer for our police is, here are the resources that you have to offer, and we want to make sure they have that knowledge as well. So let me see if there's any other additional points I want to say. Another big issue that we have is individuals getting transported to the hospital. We know that people get transported to the hospital quite often, and then 45 minutes later, they're released from the hospital. So if you have a suicidal individual, you have someone with a mental health crisis, oftentimes if they are not actively suicidal, they will be released from that hospital, even if they're petitioned to see like a psychiatrist or an MD. So with a co-responder, only 21% of the time were those individuals transported to an emergency department as opposed to with police, it's 44% of the time. Because 57% of the time with co-response, we were able to resolve the situation informally, not in a hospital setting. So we're able to look at alternative solutions, whereas with police, it's less than 50% of the time. So there is an additional piece, an additional element that we can add. Another great piece of this is use of force. When co-responders are on scene, at least from the data from my departments, use of force, which starts at handcuffs for my departments on up, was 5% as opposed to no co-responders, there was a 9% use of force. So there's a lot of data here, and there's a lot to support the use of having a co-responder and how we've had a lot of great outcomes. On the handout that you were given, you can see how many arrests were made versus how many individuals remained in the community and how many individuals were voluntarily transported to emergency departments. One of the things we really focus on is sending our police officers through our crisis intervention team training, and that's 40 hours of mental health training that we send our officers through. And with that comes the ability to hopefully work with them on scene and get them to voluntarily and be willing to go to a place for help rather than involuntarily be taken somewhere. So we really value individuals' rights and wanting to make sure they get what they need per their participation. That's my quick spiel on that. So thank you for listening. Yep.
Just as far as funding goes, we were initially going to work with Waterford as a team in reference to the co-responder program, but their timeline was a little faster than ours. So they got the ball rolling and got it completed a little faster than I was comfortable with. So I teamed up with Walled Lake, Wolverine Lake, and Wixom. So there's going to be four establishments that are going to be part of this program. So it's going to be a team effort. It's OCHN is going to, with us, is going to hire the individual. They're going to work for OCHN. They will not be on the White Lake payroll. We will just supply the funding for it. We will be, White Lake will be the fiduciary, and we will collect the money when it's due. Also, we put in, OCHN has a grant through the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 where they will pay for the first year. We, in White Lake, obtain a grant for 3 years after that. There's some logistics that need to be worked out, but a minimum of 1 year will be paid through the coronavirus grant from the state of Michigan. So at least 2 years of it, this will be paid, and we're working on getting the other two. There just needs to be some logistics that need to be worked out to make sure that we can supply those other 2 years. And in addition, I know we've been getting money from the opioid settlement, and all that money can, once these grants run out, can go towards the co-responder. So it's going to be several years, I would say half a decade to a decade, that we will be able to fund this program without any monies from the taxpayers. So, does anybody have any questions?
I think it's a great program. I've done a little bit of reading on some of these programs, and statistically, where you have mental health people involved, a lot of the bad stuff goes down because, police departments for decades were in the mental health business, whether they liked it or not. Mm-hmm. And this is something that we need. So this is the prevention core. This is the logical part of this, where you put people out there in the field that can help diffuse some of these situations, hopefully, and anyone could be taken out of harm's way by just maybe bringing somebody off the proverbial ledge, so to speak, and getting them to function. Questions, comments from the board?
Yeah, as someone that works on another branch, 'cause my office used to be OCHN.
Oh, okay.
I'm out, work from home most of the time. But yeah, this is absolutely needed thing in White Lake Township. Chief Keller, we've had someone in the past that was a mental health support system in White Lake Township. Is that person still around?
So that was through Common Ground.
Okay.
And we would work with them. We would send them the information, and they would contact the individual and work through the process in
Okay,
that,
so
in
it's
that
just,
aspect.
okay, I wasn't catching on. at
This,
that
this
point.
aspect is like, well, as you recall, if you saw the building, we have an office that we built because we've been working with OCHN for a year to get this here. And I wanted to have them to have an office, at least in White Lake, because they'll travel around to each department, but I want them to have a good office, a stable office that they can come to, and if they need to have interviews or they need to do things inside the building, they'll have that capability.
Oh, It's a great program.
Anyone else? Mr. Roman?
Yeah, how do you know which calls to go on?
It's a great question. So I have 4 departments that I currently scan for, and it's kind of triage based. Usually the calls don't come out all at once, thank goodness. So, I look for suicidal individuals. Those are my number 1 calls. We listen for welfare checks. We listen for suspicious people, suspicious circumstances, family troubles, neighbor troubles. Those are the kinds of calls that we kind of learn to listen to. But suicidal subjects, those are our number 1
So
responses.
you're tied into dispatch somehow?
Yep.
You can actually hear the calls, and you kind of know which ones are your priority.
Yep.
And then, but you said you drive your own vehicles. Do you have sirens on your car?
I wish, but no. No, we don't. We get a stipend from our departments to drive our own vehicle. We don't have any type of sirens or anything. With our police partners, they just have an understanding that, like, listen, you'll hear me call out on the radio that I'm on the way, that I'm en route, and I'll usually say from where. If you guys clear the scene before I'm able to get there, that's okay. They can do a referral for me, and I'll still follow up with that family or individual.
Okay, and how do you guys protect yourselves?
We wear a vest, and I wish I would have brought one. Mine's back at work, but we wear a Kevlar vest just like these guys. The difference is mine is not blue. Mine is like a beige gray color, and it says social worker on it in big bold letters to make it very distinct that I'm not a police officer.
Okay, do you carry as well, or no?
Nope.
No.
No weapons.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Question. Currently, right now, if you have a mental person in need, crisis, suicide, or you have to commit them, what's the turnaround time that that person gets committed to the hospital? I know it's up to 72 hours usually, but typically what we find is it's usually about 24 hours to maybe 34 hours, correct?
It depends. It's very situational depending on the hospital, depending on the time that person gets brought in. If it's early in the morning, usually there's a psychiatrist or the attending MD that can see that person that day, and they can, if they qualify, they'll get a clinical cert to go to inpatient that day. But they do have up to 72 hours to evaluate that individual at the hospital. So it really is just dependent on how the hospital operates.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this will alleviate that, bog down the hospitals and kind of divert them into other programs, which will not only help the police department, but help the community as well, right?
Yes, our goal is, we're still gonna have to take individuals to the hospital sometimes, but if we do end up taking someone to the hospital and petition, the goal is we have hospital liaisons in different hospitals all around Oakland County. I can then contact our hospital liaison and say, John Doe was just dropped off at, Ascension Hospital, and, can you make sure that an assessment gets done on him? They will then reach out to that hospital and make sure that that happens. If that individual gets released prior to that, they're still going to get someone that follows up with them no matter what.
This is the last question.
Yeah.
Police and fire go there. Typically, from your flyer here, people become combative. With this program being implemented, that will reduce officer and firemen being injured at the scene by having you come here. That's what I'm hearing tonight.
Yes, in a strange way, somehow it alleviates that. Sometimes just having us come onto scene, it just sort of changes the environment. Having us there, yeah, like the vibe on the scene, and we're able to hopefully help de-escalate that situation in a little bit of a different way.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Great program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Any other questions?
Trustee Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This can't happen fast enough, in my opinion, so I'm super excited about this. Mental health is real, and people need help, and there's not the help available for them. And so I'm excited that you're coming to White Lake. I appreciate Chief Keller for spearheading this to involve the other communities and get this going. So my one question is still the piece about common ground. That, this is just my opinion, sometimes common ground isn't very successful.
Right.
So you're still taking them to common ground, or you're following up with our residents?
So there's two different answers to that.
Okay.
If we get referrals from police, we're gonna follow up with those individuals ourselves. If we're on a scene and that person needs to go to common ground, we still will take them to common ground. The great thing is OCHN, we have a partnership with common ground where common ground should not be ever refusing police drop-offs. So we have phone numbers to people at common ground.
Following it through and
Yes.
staying with the person?
Right.
That's good,
So if
okay.
someone says to me like, no, you can't come and drop this person off, that's not really an option. So we're gonna figure that out with them. And if for some reason, like they have overflow or if they're full, we work with like McLaren, Oakland and Pontiac and they do their overflow. So we can take that individual to that hospital, drop them off, and they then coordinate with Common Ground to help them with that overflow. But there isn't a reason that Common Ground shouldn't take an individual. So there definitely has been some barriers, you're correct.
Yeah.
And we're working through those.
But now our residents have an advocate in you, so that's wonderful.
Yep.
So thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Powell.
I understand that we have some grants and some monies available for the first 1, 2, or 3 years. If there were no grants at all, and it comes down to the 4 communities joining forces for those funds, what would be the annual cost per community to keep this running after the grants run out?
So as of right now, it's approximately $130,000 for everything, which includes vehicle stipend, like the vest, computer, everything that they need for that to do, for them to do their job. And then White Lake is 30%, Wixom is 30%, Walled Lake is 30%, and Wolverine Lake is 10%. And we just went off the numbers that we submitted to OCHN, that we were the 3 were kind of higher than Wolverine Lake. So the fund will be split, but it'll be split in that fashion.
All right, and the last question that I had, first of all, it's a great program, and I think you're going to see a unanimous vote here. Who pays the bill for the people that are actually treated or taken to the hospital? How are their fees paid? Otherwise, you've added additional stress to them that they may not need.
Yeah, I don't have a great answer for that. I mean, right now, OCHN itself works with individuals who have Medicaid or no insurance. So we try to support people to get on Medicaid and get help through the Medicaid system. As far as the hospital bills go, I know there are programs out there that can help with that. There's not much OCHN can do in that way. Like, we don't have a certain service that deals with that, but if that is an issue, if we know that funding is an issue for them, we'll try and help them with, with anything we can as far as like services that can help.
But isn't it typical that the hospitals, if they're indigent, that the hospitals will write those bills off?
I think hospitals don't have a choice but to write those bills off, but yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions at this time? Thank you, everybody.
I just
Yes.
want to, so what I'm requesting is to give the supervisor the ability to sign the contract after Lisa works with OCHN attorneys to get this thing going.
Okay.
Rick, I had another question.
Yes, Mr. Rome.
Yeah, in matters that don't involve the police, like say, for example, you had someone illegally living in a trailer or something, and they were on drugs, they were on cocaine, and you needed to get them help. Would you get involved in something like that as well?
Yep. We have partners, our crisis response unit, they deal with individuals who have substance use or abuse disorders. So that's a combination of several of our deputies in Oakland County with Alliance Coalition, and together they partner. So Alliance Coalition is an organization of people with lived experience, substance use experience, and they partner with those deputies, and they will get that individual help, assuming that they want it, pretty immediately. We've seen it be very successful.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great program.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks. At this time, I'm going to make a motion to approve the Lakes Area Co-Responders Program, subject to Township Attorney review, and allows supervisor to sign such an agreement.
Support.
I have motions.
Under discussion,
Yes.
if I could. Mr. Supervisor, what line item, what budget line item
General.
would this come out of? Would it general funds or the police department?
No, probably come out of general.
General funds.
As far as if
But there's no fee at this time.
I understand
So
that,
in the
but-
future, 5 years from now, we'll have that discussion.
Well, we should probably have a line item because it gets reimbursed, but it comes from us and then gets reimbursed, right?
So I will tell you, God bless your heart for wanting to take it out of general. We have the capability of putting this in as a line item for the police department.
Okay, that's fine
It's in
then.
there. We're a growing community. We would have the funds to do this because it's a good
Yeah, if you want,
program.
if you could put it in there and roll it, that's fine. If not, the township is more than willing to take that on because that's a benefit to the entire township as a whole.
I
Not
appreciate
just the
you,
police
Mr. Supervisor.
department.
And I
Okay.
think the opioid funds go into your department, do they not?
So the settlements?
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes to police and fire. So this fits, there's already a group of 4 departments that are using it for that purpose. So that's it's going to be used for that.
Okay, the only amendment I'll make to that is the funding to be funded directly through the police department. That's it.
Okay.
And I'll amend my support.
And I have a minute support. All in favor?
Aye.
Let's have it. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Great work. Okay, next item, 9C, first reading is zoning request for parcel 12-23-223-003, commonly known as 9101 Highland Road. Mr. O'Neill.
Good evening, thank you. Tonight before you for first reading again is 9101 Highland. They were here in May. At that time, you had postponed their request for rezoning and had directed us to go and discuss with the applicant the possibility of doing a conditional rezoning, which our ordinance doesn't currently allow, but to kind of look into a little further, they were not interested and we did not advance any changes to or amendments to the ordinance that would have allowed that. And then we were also directed to go and meet with MDOT to discuss the traffic light or the possibility of a traffic light going in at Sunny Beach and M59. I don't remember how many weeks it took to get a meeting with MDOT, and Reed Cooksey, who is here on behalf of the applicant tonight, worked with me. We were both sending emails to MDOT for a period of weeks. Finally, on July 30th, after, again, many weeks of trying, we were able to meet with MDOT. They reiterated at that time what we had already basically known, which is that that intersection doesn't meet their warrant requirements in order to put a traffic light in. And we had asked them to put it in writing. We wanted it in writing to be able to share with you and for the public, so it's not just our words in this meeting. And in 3 weeks' time, we have been unable to get a letter from MDOT affirming what they told everyone in that meeting on the 30th of July. So it's pretty disappointing. Reed sent an email to his contacts at MDOT again today. So we were emailing and, did we miss anything? Do we have this letter? And no, we do not. So I would think that could be done in 30 minutes, and it should not take 3 weeks. So that's kind of an aside, but anyway, that was the answer we got from MDOT. So before you tonight is the request that was here in May that was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission, which is to rezone this property from R1C, single-family residential, to RB, restricted business. It does meet the master plan and is consistent with the surrounding uses and current surrounding zoning, I should say. And again, the Planning Commission recommended at the regular meeting on May 16th approval of this rezoning request. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them, or again, Reed is here on behalf of the applicant.
Well, I will share a level of frustration with MDOT is, case in point, as all of you know, Elizabeth Lake Road is being rebuilt. And if you traverse Tigardine Road and you dare decide to go west on M59, or if you're coming southbound and you want to go east, God help you, okay? So myself and my deputy, Trish Pergament, and I hounded MDOT, and we finally were able to receive an appointment. And I will tell you, it is absolutely discouraging when you go there, and they essentially tell you that it's not warranted. And we would, so the level of frustration with them, I won't go down that rabbit hole, but is there. So, you know, if you ask any board member here, I don't think you'd find anybody that wouldn't support, irregardless of whatever may or may not come along 59, would not support, that wouldn't support having a light put in there. I don't know what it takes. I don't know how many people have to get hurt or unfortunately maybe killed or whatever. I don't know what it takes for MDOT to recognize this. So it's extremely frustrating from the township's end. I can't even get a left turn signal, okay? And at an existing intersection, okay? So they're really a different breed of character to deal with, and I'll just put it that way. So it's very disappointing that our efforts have taken us long, and to simply not get a letter that would state what their position was is actually almost embarrassing. You know, but we don't control them. Unfortunately, they have their own control. I know that the zoning is going to go to
RB, restricted business is what the request is.
which is a much more restricted classification of commercial.
So it's slightly more restrictive than general business. Their original application was for general business that did not pass the planning commission. Rather than moving to you at that time, they decided to go back and have another public hearing and revise their request to restricted business. And that's where they are today.
So at this time, the master plan calls for commercial development along M59, and I know that you folks have heard this before and you're gonna hear it again because it's just the realities of it. Anybody that buys property along the M59 corridor, no matter where it's at, even down in the western end of our township, it's hard not to expect that you're going to have some commercial development on that strip. People buy properties with investment purposes and development purposes. It is the general purpose and desire of this board and the planning commission and the ZBA to work with the developer to have the least impactful effect on your community or the community that it surrounds. If zoning goes through, it is not an automatic green light that they can do whatever they want to do. There are certain requirements. There will be other meetings. There'll be other things that come in when their site plan goes through the process. There'll be things to review and look at. Are there certain ways that things need to be done that could be done better to prevent whatever the issues are? Traffic on 59 is going to continue to grow. Generally, local businesses are only attracting local people, i.e., they put a coffee shop there. No one from Brighton is driving all the way to White Lake Township to go to a coffee shop, okay? It'll be traffic generated in our own area. And that's the traffic that we'll have to deal with, which unfortunately, we all like being out here because we like it out here. But the problem is, everybody else is starting to like it out here. And that is a problem in western Oakland County and central Oakland County as a whole. So this board, Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, all those boards that are involved will take every step that they can to try to make sure that the end product is the least impactful. For some reason, if this is not complied with, there's a possibility that it could go down another direction where the township would have little to no control, okay? So it is in the best interest of the township to be as much in control as possible. And there have been instances that have happened, and even as I have been supervisor, that outside parties, mainly Oakland County Circuit Court, has made some decisions. They're not exactly the most popular ones, but once it hits a certain point, we're done. And that is what troubles me, is the fact that we need to be able to do our job, and these various boards need to be able to do their job. And every hearing that's done, or every meeting that's done, or every plan that's drafted is available in our township hall in the community development department for you to take a look at. And you can look at it a week before it goes to the commissions or the planning commission or zoning board or whatever it is. And in that process, you'll have the ability to look at it and comment to Mr. O'Neill's department. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of how that works. So my thought processes are, I would rather have the township be as in much control of this and use its good judgment and input from the community to do the best that it can for the surrounding neighbors to minimize the impact. Questions or comments from the board?
What's the motion that you need to
I
move to
have
second reading?
no motion at this time, but I just wanted to know if there was any other questions or comments from this board.
Should we hear from the public first?
We're going to do that, but this conversation will take place first. So, any other
Mr.
comments?
Supervisor?
Yes.
You probably expected me to have a couple of things
I
to
would
say.
never have thought of it, Mike.
I'm a little disappointed that the administration didn't at least come back to the board here with a reason why a conditional rezoning ordinance is not a good option for the township in general, besides this particular site. It certainly gives the opportunity to put requirements on a site plan that might control issues that may impact the surrounding community. Otherwise, and I would maybe turn to our planning department to ask if this board rezones this property to commercial, do we have an ordinance that requires, not if they would do it under their own volition, might require a night lighting ordinance to reduce the quantity and quality of the night lights and the height of the parking lot lights. Maybe a special detail for the cross-section of the berm requiring the masonry wall to be against the parking lot instead of against the property lines, and also allow for a higher berm with trees planted on it so that it would block the noise. Nothing blocks noise like density, and the berm is what blocks the noise. And if you just, a 30-foot setback or a 30-foot green belt with the 1-on-4 side slopes for maintenance, it's only going to get you a 3-foot high berm, which isn't going to even block the lights, let alone the sound. And there are ways around that. And then also, I don't believe we have an ordinance that controls the loudness of the ordering speakers and things like that. Okay, we have an ordinance that says you can't be above a certain decibel, but that doesn't do anything. I mean, I'd like to eliminate that altogether so you don't have that reverberation going into the neighborhood. So I would ask the planning department maybe to give us some guidance. If this passes tonight, what ordinance we have that, you mentioned that the planning commission can help review things, but the planning commission only responds to what the ordinance will allow. And I don't believe we have an ordinance that controls those kind of modifications.
So that was a multi-parter.
Yes, that's a little bit of.
And I didn't take good enough notes because I
Yeah.
didn't think you were going to go on that long. So I'll address them as, I think as I can recall them. So to go back to your original question, which deals with conditional rezoning, when the applicant wasn't interested in conditional rezoning, and because it has to begin with them, it cannot begin with us, we decided not even to pursue it because we thought, well, trying to rush this through a process rather than put it as kind of put it together as a group of ordinance amendments, which is how we generally do things just for efficiency's sake. So we didn't really give it much thought after that. And I confirmed with the applicant today that that was in fact still the case. As it relates to your questions regarding light and noise, the ordinance does address, and I'm sure you're aware, when it's commercial property, abutting residential, there can be 0-foot candles measured at the lot line. And so that would be the same, those requirements would still apply. And I think that not only have and as far as the noise, it's by certain hours of the night, the decibel levels are reduced by ordinance too now. Unfortunately, we usually find out about them when someone calls and says, hey, at 11 o'clock, I heard 15 cars ordering at Taco Bell, and, someone's got to come out and take a listen to this. So sometimes it requires us following up, but it's like everything else in the ordinance, we have to just enforce the regulations that we have on the books. With every site plan, obviously everyone's different, comes, set of challenges. And in this case, the applicants made it clear that they intend to seek special land use approval for drive-through food and/or beverage restaurant or restaurants. So we do have the ability to control and condition that kind of approval in order to help mitigate and, address some of the concerns with light and with noise, which of course are two of the major concerns of any resident adjacent to commercial property. So if they don't seek approval for those types of uses, a use type that would trigger special land use, then you are definitely correct. We only can go so far. We can only enforce what the ordinance says, which still does address light. It still does address noise. But as far as increasing some of the buffering, like you're talking about, I think we're able to take that a little further. I know we can take that a little further to help mitigate some of the concerns with the special land use. And, even without it, I think the applicant in this case, though they don't have to, would be agreeable to additional buffering. I think after they met with, and I'm sure Reed can step up and answer this himself if he'd like, but I think after meeting with the residents, they increased the buffer by a certain number of feet to help kind of give a little more kind of freeboard to that area between the neighbors and the new proposed development. So I don't think that it has to be conditional rezoning in order to make address some of these concerns. But to your point, I know the conditional rezoning route gets right into many, many specifics that it's basically the site plan being approved with the rezoning. So that is definitely not what's going to happen here. And even with the special land use, it doesn't go quite as far. But I think we would certainly want to and need to address that if this were approved and was to move forward at the planning commission level to deal with some of the potential nuisance type activity that could occur with this kind of a use.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments at this time? Okay, and at this moment, yes.
I guess I need to, as this board knows, I deal with these site plans every day for the last 50 years. I honestly believe that the continued use of residential or restricted church use or activity is not the proper use for this site. To leave this site zoned residential, in my opinion, is not the right place for this, for that zoning. That being said, our master plan does call for a commercial use. I'm pleased that they're proposing a restricted business use. I can't stress enough to let this board know that if it's zoned commercial, we're somewhat at the mercy of the applicant to work with the township, because as long as they follow the rules, this township has to approve it. Otherwise, what you said is correct. It'll go to court, the judge will mandate it, and we lose all control then. So that's not the right use either.
No.
I fully understand the predicament. I understand the people that surround this. It's going to be extremely critical that they stay in touch with the planning commission and work with this township to minimize those negative impacts. So,
I just got, real quick, I do know that Supervisor Kowal and Deputy Supervisor Pergament did, they had been trying to get a hold of MDOT, very difficult to do, as you know, and I'd feel more comfortable if we did get a response from them. I do know that they did try and they're very difficult to get a hold of, maybe reaching out to the state senator or the state representative Maddox. Maybe they could shake the trees and get somebody to come out or answer the phone and get back to them, because I've been getting a lot of phone calls with Taggardine and the light that they've been dealing with constantly, and trying to get them to come back on that Arrow Correct.
Second to garbage.
Yes.
Well, and just to be clear, they did verbally tell us no. It was more of us just saying, okay, please put it in writing, because we don't want to, it's an important thing, you know, and we do want that, we do
Yeah.
want that letter.
They owe us that, right?
They absolutely do.
Correct.
I agree.
Okay, any questions or comments?
I would just,
Mr. Ruggles?
quick, before we hear from the residents, but, you know, this came before the planning commission twice. It was voted down the first time. The second time it was approved, but it was a split decision. And it wasn't a full board at that meeting, but we had a lot of feedback from the residents, and I hope some of them are here tonight to tell this board how they feel before we make a decision. So I think we should hear from them.
I'm gonna just reserve my comments till after hearing from the public.
No, that's fine. Okay, so at this time, if anybody would like to speak, I know that a lot of you have something to say. This board has heard a lot of this. Some of it's going to be going through the laundry all over again. So if you're welcome to state your case, we're aware of the circumstances. That's why this thing has slowed down and taken the course that it has, so that we could look at all the options and see what and how our course of action could be for this particular area. But if you would like to speak, you'll have to state your name for the recorder and state your business. And it's not a question and answer period, it is strictly making your statement. So at this time, if you just want to raise your hand, I'll let you come up if you want to. Okay, well, I think you all know that we're taking this very seriously, okay? And that we are concerned about the impact on our community as a whole, and in particular our neighborhood. And that's why through this process, you need to be there, okay? There has been oodles of times that things have gone through here where people will start to get, and then they lose their interest in it, and then things go a certain way, and they say, well, gee, I didn't know about this. Well, you folks obviously do, and it's refreshing to this board that you're actually involved in it. Because in a sense, it just makes us at a higher level of awareness that it's an area that's sensitive, and it's sensitive to you. So I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it is a heightened awareness. So at this time, I'm going to look for a motion.
So,
Hang on, I
I-
think we have some comments. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so
Oh, good.
I'm surprised that there's no residents here tonight. I had hoped to hear from residents. And my feeling at the moment, and I don't know if we're going to have any more board discussion, is I'm probably going to stick with, my job is to represent the residents. And I did hear from them, and I have read the planning commission minutes. So I'm probably going to stick with the residents on this one.
You are entitled to that. Okay. I would like to go forward unless no one else wants to make the motion. I will.
I've got a comment.
Yes.
So, yeah, I was hopeful to see some residents here to speak on this matter too. So we listened to them in detail at the planning commission. We heard them here last time. And I hate to believe that the master plan is ironclad.
Right.
You know, we spent 2 years talking about it. And it's a great document, but, you know, I'd hate to think just because it's trying to guide us in the right direction that we're hogtied by it. So, I mean, we listened to all the people that live around there talk about how all of their concerns, and I was more than happy to listen to it, and I agree with them. And so I'm gonna have a hard time voting in favor of this tonight.
You're entitled to that. Okay. Any other comment? Last call. Okay. I'm going to make a motion that we move this to second reading and, excuse me, that we, for parcel number 12-23-227-003, commonly known as 9101 Highland Road. Make that in a formal motion. Looking for support.
Support.
I have motion, I have support. Roll call vote.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
No.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
supervisor Kowal,
For reasons of not being in malfeasance with the township, I will vote yes.
treasurer Roman,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
No.
Clerk Noble, no.
Motion passes. So, that being said, again, your attention to this and coming in here is heard, okay? There are not too many people here. I look out in the crowd, and generally, we see one or two faces here, and one of them's over there. And, which is great, but I think she could tell you if you pull her off to the side, and she's not on our payroll, okay? That she will tell you that we take this job very seriously and we try to do the right things because we try to keep the township out of trouble, but we try to make sure that the residents have what they need and get as much of what they possibly can. And being in a growth community, it's a battle. It's a fine battle that we are at every day in our planning to try to keep some of our rural integrity, but understand people want to have the modern amenities. So it is a challenge for this board. So I thank all of you for being here tonight for that, and I can assure you, this board, Planning Commission, and ZBA, if necessary, will take all this quite seriously, and I would strongly recommend you attend any and all of those meetings that will occur on this matter, okay? All right. Next item. We are going into a BS&A technology, the cloud. This is my deputy, Tricia Pergament.
Good evening, everyone. Trish Pergament, Deputy Supervisor. Last month, we had a discussion about the need to upgrade our BS&A modules for our financial management and community development to the cloud. The board was in favor, but they requested that we go back and talk to them about the contract and seeing if we can hold a price, which they have not traditionally done. We've operated with them on a year-to-year basis, and that's the way they like it, and that's what I believe they do with their customers. So Dave Heber and Kim Patton and I sat in on a phone call, and they came back to us and they would not agree to hold the increases. That's not how they normally operate, but they did agree to a 3-year contract that would spread the cost of the implementation over the 3 years, because it is, to try and help us out with that. And they also gave us a $7,200 reduction on the implementation itself. So everything else is the same. It's a 3-year contract. The price, the way they have their contract written, it's 5% or the greater of the consumer price index for all urban consumers is how they do their increase each year. It's typically been, I think, around 5%. We still would need to, and if this gets approved tonight, go back and negotiate terms and conditions with them, because I didn't want to spend a bunch of money doing that with our attorneys if it didn't get approved. So we have until August 30th to accept this with the terms and conditions worked out in order to keep the $7,200 discount. So I guess I'm asking the board if they want to approve this to move forward with the bringing all of our modules into the cloud, which we're going to need to do eventually if we're going to stay with them.
Okay, so total proposed is 151.
Yeah, total proposal. The modules each year are $77,945, and the implementation cost with the discount is $73,540. That will not be, obviously, ever again. That's just for the implementation, that portion of it.
But again, the total proposed.
And we're adding 2 modules that we believe that would be very helpful. That was the fixed assets that was requested by accounting, and the special assessment that the assessor felt was going to be very helpful.
Okay, I just want to recap. Total 151,485.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Roman?
Yeah, so I think as a board, we all agreed that we need to move to the cloud as BS&A is going to stop supporting their existing modules And I think we need to approve this ASAP, because if we don't, we're gonna lose our place in line. We're trying to be one of the first of the townships to actually get this all implemented.
And prior to tax season.
Correct. And we don't want an implementation to coincide with moving into new buildings.
No.
So I would ask the board to get this approved.
Why don't you make a motion then? Is there any other comment? Seeing none, Mr.
Okay,
Roman?
motion to approve paying BSNA $151,485
Allow supervisor.
as per the proposal in front of us, and allow the supervisor to sign any necessary legal documents
Pending negotiations of the terms.
and negotiation of the terms, subject to attorney review.
Second it.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote?
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees?
Yes.
Trustee Powell?
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles?
Yes.
Treasurer Roman?
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Supervisor Colwell?
Reluctantly, yes. Technology is constantly changing and it's very expensive. Thank you.
All right, thank
Tricia, Tricia, you did a really great job.
And I want to thank Kim Patton for, she's going to spearhead the implementation of this project.
There was an awful
And
lot of
coordinate.
material to go over.
Thanks.
It was like watching paint dry. So,
Thank you, Kim.
thank you, ladies. Okay, next item. 9E, Resolution 24-039, tentatively declaring its intention to establish a special district to be known as the Cooley Lake Weed Control and Lake Improvement, 2024-2028. Mr. Hebert, boy, you got up there quick.
This is the first resolution in the three-resolution process. If we were to move forward with this, this is a petition-based weed control assessment on Cooley Lake. Represents 183 parcels within White Lake Township, 12 parcels within Commerce Township. In the past, there has been a special assessment with this lake. There isn't currently one, and we've done an intergovernmental agreement with Commerce Township. My understanding from talking to or communicating with Larry Gray, the supervisor in Commerce, that they're moving forward as well. So with your review and approval, we'll set the first public hearing for your next month's meeting. I don't know if there's anybody here that wants to speak on this, though.
Anybody from the lake?
We're here in agreement, but.
All right, well, it's good, and again, this board tries to be proactive and try to assist our residents, and in this particular case, lakefront homeowners, so that they can have a nice environment at their home. I think everybody should be entitled to that when, especially when they're willing to pull the freight and make it happen.
Looking for a motion?
Please, make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 24-039 to tentatively declare the intention to establish a special assessment district to be known as the Cooley Lake Weed Control and Lake Improvement from 2024 to 2028.
Second.
I have a motion, seconded by Clerk Noble. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Resolution 24-033, determining to establish and maintain a special assessment district to pay costs associated therewith, approving the plans and estimates of costs therewith, or to be known as the Burgess Bay Weed Control and Lake Improvement, 2024 through 2028. Now, Burgess has done this in the past.
Yes, this is a continuation or a new special assessment, but this is continuing what the 20 parcels on the bay have been doing for a number of years. It is petition-based special assessment under PA 188. You did hold the public hearing to establish the district at the last meeting. We didn't move the resolution forward. We're moving the resolution forward now. We'll set the public hearing for the confirmation, if passed. We'll set the confirmation public hearing for the September meeting and approve it then. We were working out some contract details with that we need to do with the weed company that's controlling the weeds in the lake.
Very good. Any questions, comments on the board? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to pass Resolution 24-033, determined to establish and maintain a special assessment district to pay costs associated therewith, approving the plans and estimates of costs, therefore to be known as Burgess Bay Weed Control and Lake Improvement, 2024 through 2028. Looking forward. I have motion, I have support from
Mr. Powell.
Mr. Powell. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it, motion carries. Item G, Resolution 24-32, determined to establish and maintain a special assessment district to pay costs associated therewith, approving the plans and estimates of costs therewith to be known as Meadow Lane Road Maintenance 2024 through 2028.
This is similar to the Burgess Bay, only this is a road maintenance special assessment that the township's been doing for years. This is 8 parcels on Meadow Lane. It's a 188 petition. Again, you held the establishment public hearing at the last meeting in July. We're moving forward with the resolution now, and we'll set the public hearing with your approval for the September meeting.
Very good. Any questions or comments from the board? It's nice to see that this is being taken care of in a collective manner and that folks are being responsible. One of the things that's difficult for this community now is to go backwards on roads that were established in the good old days that did not have maintenance agreements. And that's why today, when roads are put in, you'll see a new road or development of a sort go in, there's always a maintenance agreement, and the public may not see it, but that is the tool in the box that's for the township to make sure that those roads stay in some sort of reasonable shape. And if there's a failure on the homeowners association or the association's part to do it, the township has a tool in the box to step in and do it and mandate an SAD, plus there's a whole bunch of processes. So it's nice to see an older one come in where the folks got together and said, hey, we realize we need to take care of this road, therefore we want you to help us out and set this up. I appreciate all your hard work in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
May I send?
Please do.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the resolution of the Township Board of the Charter Township of White Lake determining to undertake an improvement project and to establish and maintain a special assessment district to pay the costs associated therewith, approving the plans and estimates of costs therefore to be known as the Meadow Lane Road Maintenance 2024 through 2028.
That is a motion, and I will support that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Next item, request approval for Lake Point Plan Development Agreement. Mr. O'Neill.
Yes, sir. Last week, the Planning Commission gave reapproval of the final site plan for Lake Point. Mr. Fenari is here tonight with Mr. Emerine, his engineer. They had an expiration date of July, I want to say 7th, and that came and went. And they do intend to begin construction on that site plan here this fall still. And in order to do so, they need to get approval of their development agreement. There were a couple minor amendments to the development agreement. Very minor, and I think we're at a point where we're getting very close to being able to execute this. Actually, as recently as today, communications were going back and forth between the township and the applicant. And, we're really at a point where I think we're going to ask you to approve this, subject to them kind of cleaning the agreement up, which is how we normally do it, and then allow the supervisor to sign and kind of wrap the whole thing up. One thing that changed that I want to make a note of, because it's really not at all the applicant's fault, and a couple of you know this already, they had 2 public benefits that were proposed. One was a $7,500 contribution to the park fund for park improvements, and then they were going to extend a sidewalk to the kind of northwest, up Union Lake Road, to the driveway of Independence Village. Independence Village didn't really even return their phone calls. It was pretty bizarre. They were going to get a free sidewalk across half their frontage. And, the question became, well, why don't we just put it in the road right-of-way? Well, it isn't. It isn't road right-of-way. It's a really narrow right-of-way section through there. And so they would have needed an easement in order to put the sidewalk in. So at this point, we got an estimate from the township engineer, and the developer has agreed to make a deposit into the park fund for pathways, so we can make other pathway connections where pathways may be more desirable by the people whose property they have to go in front of. So that was certainly unfortunate that we couldn't get that section in, but he did agree to add that to his development agreement, and that was just last Thursday. So other than that, it's all very straightforward, and, the same applicant owns the West Valley project across the street, and once all the permits come in and they're ready to go, I think they intend to begin construction, and if you have any questions for them, I think they're prepared to answer them. Otherwise, I would certainly encourage your yes vote on this development agreement.
I have had some time to review this because it's been around for some time. So I know that it's evolved in its processes, and I think it's a fairly good use of the space of the property, and certainly within the general use of the area. I know that it's been looked at again multiple times, and I'm sure the Planning Commission has taken a peek at it. And
We've seen it quite a few times.
yes.
But I've been pulling for this guy for a long time now.
Well, I think he
It's
just
gonna move
enjoys our
forward.
company, which is
Just
why he keeps
excited
coming
that
back,
it's
which
moving
is
forward.
Moving
Yeah,
forward.
I've been hopeful the whole time.
We go back to 2017. That's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
He's our high school now.
Yeah, there you go, yeah.
I have
Any-
a question.
I have a quick
Yes.
question too.
Go ahead, Miss. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you,
Trustee.
okay. Sean and I talked quite a bit about this, so I just thought of this as he was explaining it. Because the funds are gonna go into like the general park for the sidewalks, if you're able to work with Independence Village or at a later date in the future, that's still possible maybe to make the connection there?
yes,
Okay, perfect.
yes. And actually,
'Cause
through their
we've always
correspondence,
been
I
hoping
asked.
to get some of those sections connected in that area of the township.
Yes, and through their correspondence, I asked them to include my contact information just to hopefully press this along, but they didn't respond.
Okay, I mean,
So that it's clear, there needs to be a connection to the development. And the attorney and I have worked through language to make it clear that there is a connection to the development.
okay,
So if they're contributing money for a sidewalk fund because they're not able to extend the sidewalk adjacent to their development, then there will be an explanation in the development agreement to explain that money.
okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
And then my last comment, which I'm just gonna reiterate that I've talked about for years, is I've always hoped that this development would allow a passing lane or a turn lane because of the crest there on Union Lake Road. So that's my only comment on this development, is I don't believe that it's safe as it could be to turn in there, but I could never I know last time we saw you, I think it was through COVID on the computer, and we just spoke to Mr. Emmerine, and I never could get that agreed upon. So I'm just stating that on the record one more time, that I very much would like to see a passing lane, a turn lane, something there for the safety of our residents. Union Lake Road's busy enough, and there is a crest there that approaching that entrance and exit.
Okay, any other comments? Yeah. Mr. Powell had his hand up.
Yeah, on picking up on that a little bit, Sean, doesn't this project have some relationship to the project across the street?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a decel.
So they would have the ability to do some filling and some encroachment on the property to the southwest in order to put that passing lane in, now that they have some ties between the two developments.
So this came up at the Planning Commission, and it was at one point in time included on the drawing. And then the Road Commission, and Mr. Emmerine is gonna have more information on this than I am because he's met with them and talked to them. But from what, my understanding is the Road Commission would not approve it because it didn't meet warrants, and it's their road, and that was it. That was kind of how it was left. So I don't know if you wanna.
Before he takes off on this, if you're asking the road commission to enforce something, they go by their warrants. If this township asks them to add that to their site plan, the road commission then approves a permit if the drawings are submitted. So whether or not the road commission allows or believes the warrants are there is immaterial if this township believes that it's worthwhile to add that to the site plan. So I'm suggesting to the board that that is an option. And then also Carpathian and Boca Vina, that whole development is on, at least the phase 1 and 2, are on septic fields. And so it's kind of a shame that the applicant hasn't extended the sanitary sewer that they've got running all the way up into their site and extended over, at least offer it to be extended over to Carpathian Drive and eliminate a couple hundred feet of sanitary sewer that would have to be run for Boca Vina to run it all the way up from Union Lake Road. So I'm just making those two comments.
I understand that it is run to Carpathian, isn't it? It's supposed to be extended to Carpathian?
Part of their plan is to run their sanitary sewer across their frontage, yes.
So it will touch Carpathian, or will go to the Carpathian right away?
Oh, okay, and I was thinking back up in their development a little bit. The plan, I apologize, the plan isn't really easy for me to read here for the sanitary going across their frontage, but at least it is being extended to Carpathian.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome if it were extended all the way back on their site instead of way out at Union Lake Road, but at least it's being extended to Carpathian. Okay, thank you.
It's my understanding that the site plans for both of these developments have already been approved. Is that correct?
Yes. It's development agreement. The other project does not have a development agreement. That's straight RM2,
Okay.
RM1.
But I believe this board gave permission for a redevelopment or reevaluation of this site because they are sharing storm sewer back and forth between the two developments. Weren't they allowed a smaller basin in this development because they have use across the street?
That's correct. And as will the Comfort Care project will tie into with an emergency outlet into the West Valley Basin as well. So
Okay.
it's kind of regionalized it a bit.
So this would be the time, if we wanted to ask them to not ask the road commission if they would force it, but ask them permission to put a passing lane in on Union Lake Road.
I don't know, do you want to hear from Jason?
That's fine now. I
Just 'cause he-
I said my piece.
Sure.
I don't, I had a comment, but.
Can we let him
keep
speak
going.
and then, okay, go ahead.
Hello, my name's Jason Emerine with Seabrook East Laner. Address is 39205 Country Club Drive, Suite C8, Farmington Hills, Michigan, 48331. It's nice to see you all again. Trustee Powell brings up some valid points, as is Trustee Smith. These are things we've talked about with the road commission at length. We do have an approved site plan without that passing lane. We talked about it a long time ago. We've gone through two now iterations with the road commission for Oakland County. We're hopeful. We asked them this morning where the status is of the review. We've submitted plans without the passing lane. We've resubmitted plans. They did not comment. We've resubmitted plans and it's currently under review. Also, the road commission, since the last time we had this whole discussion, we did what was called a traffic impact statement. We've since done a traffic impact assessment. I mentioned to Sean and the planning commission on Thursday. We'd be happy to provide that to the township should they want it. But there is a traffic study performed by Fleece and Vandenbrink. And they also said the warrants that Mr. Powell mentioned were not there to support a passing lane. So that's where we're at right now with the passing lane. We expect hopefully approvals any day now from the road commission, permits to be pulled right after that. And then with regards to the sanitary sewer, it is stubbed all the way over to, it's actually part of the West Valley site plan, the sewer across the frontage. And it does go all the way over to Carpathian Drive. We worked with Mr. Potter and Mike Lofkin, your engineer, to make sure that the sewer district on the township sanitary sewer master plan is deep enough to service all those communities you mentioned. I think that covered everything. If there's anything else, let me know.
Okay, thank you. All right. Mr. Ruggles, your comment.
Oh, yeah, it was a couple things. So the issue of putting in a decel lane that we're discussing, that's totally on the road commission, correct? I mean, the road even if we want it, the road commission says, no, we can't have it, right?
I can't speak for the road commission. That would be up to the traffic safety department of the road commission for Oakland County, Alex Rosinski.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Additionally, the public benefit that we discussed on this project, oftentimes we get into where we're talking about dollar amounts. I personally am not a fan of that. I'd like to see, something tangible, something actually completed, rather than this board talking about, dollars coming from a developer. And we get into it all the time. So just for future reference, if we could keep it to something that we could see. I know we try to get a sidewalk extension put in, but if we could, keep it that way instead of talking about monetary value all the time, it would make me more comfortable. And Sean, on this approval, you said subject to cleaning it up. What exactly would be cleaning it up?
So, the attorney and sometimes the engineer, but for sure the attorney always has comments on review letters because they just go through and, well, that I wasn't dotted and that T was crossed. And I mean that, nicely, Lisa. I was, not trying to be nasty, but, so there are just some revisions, minor revisions that are needed prior to, like any of the other agreements and documents we sign. We have Lisa review them, make sure everything's in good order. So that's really all I meant by that. And you're gonna hear me say the exact same thing in 3 minutes when we get into New Hopes, because it's got a couple little outstanding issues, but they're not substantive. So rather than holding them off, it would be better just, and waiting for board meetings that happen once a month. We prefer to get them to you when they're in pretty good shape, and then let the staff work with the engineer and the attorney on these to kind of clean up and get in order all the language so it's perfect, and then have the supervisor sign.
Thanks. Counsel?
Trustee Ruggles, just so you know, we have gone back and forth on the development agreement, and we are 99% there. In fact, they just sent over a draft yesterday that personally I'm fine with, but I know the engineer hasn't had an opportunity to review. So we're there. It's very close to what's in your packet.
Okay. And this is actually this is probably closer than most of them, really, when they come to you. They're usually a handful of outstanding items, and as long as they agree to address them, it's just a matter of them getting it to us. But then if it gets to us, we can turn it right around and be done, as opposed to waiting for a board meeting. So that's why timing-wise, it's just more practical to get it to you when it's in
That's a
really
little
good shape.
friendlier to the developer
It
in the
is.
process.
It just moves it along.
I have a question for you. What was the community give back that you spoke about?
It was $7,500, and then he was gonna extend the sidewalk. But because they can't do the sidewalk, then we're throwing in another, was it $2,000?
It's changed now to
8,700.
$8,700 as of last Thursday.
Okay.
$7,500 for the park fund, $8,700 for the future installation of approximately 630 square feet of off-site concrete, and also $1,500 to the speed bumps to Carpathian Drive across the street, should that HOA decide to install speed bumps within their
I think
development.
we left it out in 2017. I remember them coming in here on the planning that there's quite a few people that wanted it, but does anybody on the board, or Sean, do you know if they still want those speed bumps? They do? Nick, I know you were in there.
Last I heard they did.
Okay.
And there is an agreement with the developer and the association to provide that money. So separate from the PD agreement that is under consideration tonight, there's a separate agreement with that HOA that is already signed and executed.
I just was trying to refresh my memory.
Okay. I guess at this time, I'd like to make a motion.
So can we, I'm sorry, just to clarify, is anyone else with Mr. Powell and I like to ask to put in this lane, and then the road commission can say no or say yes, but if we are advocating for it from this board?
I feel like the site plan issues are done with at this point, and so I feel like it would not be equitable to make that change to them now at this point. The planning commission, who gets final say and final approval, has approved it without it. And the road commission, if the road commission requires it, then they'll have it. Otherwise, they won't.
Yeah, well, the only thing in front of us is the agreement. So we need to move forward with the
But don't we
agreement.
have the authority to amend the agreement?
I mean, I think you probably have the authority to do a lot of things. I don't know exactly. I mean, this is.
I like that answer.
And I'm not, to Jason's point, I don't know really, I don't know how the road, and I understand what Mr. Powell was saying too. If this goes to the road commission and we push the issue with them, I don't know where that leads.
Or if that takes 6 months to a year to get a decision.
Yeah,
And that's the problem, as we should know from our own dealing.
My take on it, we're going on 7 years, correct? 7 years is money, a lot of interest, and it's going to be up to the road commission if they're going to be required. So, you're sitting on, I mean, they've been waiting forever, and I too.
But they're waiting, and our resident safety doesn't compare.
Don't
to
disagree,
me.
and we've addressed that with the speed bumps and things like that, that's out of our control, is what he's saying. If they come back towards at the road commission, I don't think there's anybody on the board that would say, no, we're not gonna let the road commission put a lane in, correct?
I also agree. Time's gonna be the killer, going back to.
And money's very expensive right now on these projects, it's keep doubling. We know that from our own civic center.
Even though we disagree, the road commission said it's not merit. There's no merit behind it. It's not
No
warranted.
urgency to them.
Although I would agree that I would prefer it to be there.
Right. It
Like
it
we all
should
can
be
agree
there
on
for safety.
M59 in front of Sunny Beach, we want a light there, but it doesn't mean MDOT's gonna get back to us, even though we've tried to get a hold of them. I don't think we should make, we're going on 7 years. And it's ridiculous to me now to hold them up. They might be sitting on a
Well,
bank loan and
in-
everything else, and
In all
they're paying
honesty, they
interest and juice
paused
on the
and they've
loan.
come back to us. It's not like we've made them wait 7 years.
Well, I
They
know, I
paused
understand
and
that,
came
but
back
they're
to
ready
us.
to go, and when you're doing that
Okay,
type of
call the
project.
question.
But I see what you're saying.
All right, I'm going to make a motion to request approval for the Lake Point Plan Development Agreement, subject to attorney's review, subject to planning, community development review and refining.
And authorize the supervisor to sign.
Authorize the supervisor to sign the documents. I'll make that in the form of formal motion. Looking for support?
I'll support that.
I have a motion.
Under comments?
Comment away.
Mr. Supervisor, just a point out that this township and the road commission required Carpathian to have a passing lane, and the traffic has greatly increased since Carpathian Drive was put in, and so there seems to be a little issue of maybe asking the road commission properly regarding that passing lane. So there's a point of interest that, point of order, Carpathian put a passing lane in, and there's much more traffic now than back then. So that, I just wanted that on the record.
Understood. I made a motion, had support. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Request approval for New Hope Planned Development Agreement. Mr. O'Neill, will you care to explain a planned development?
Yes, indeed, and Rumi
Kind of
should-
sort of already been in place for a while, and the doors are open and swinging, and
Yeah,
residents are there.
And you approved the development agreement many, many months ago. And in recent months, Rumi's come back and asked for some amendments to his landscape plan, which resulted in an amendment to the development agreement. And I think before we ever got that amendment inked, we had, and it's been several months now, a request from Rumi to allow for the use of the satellite building, I'll call it, the small building out in front, for those of you who are familiar with the site and have been out there. That has been kind of a training facility for Rumi, and I think they're doing a lot of that now inside the facility, though I think he may be able to speak more, I guess, directly and accurately than I am able to on that. But they've come into, I guess, communication with a company that trains certified nursing assistants, and those folks would like to use I'm going to say the mock setup that Rumi has built into this building to train his folks to do other training, not just for, I guess, a class of individuals who may want to gather at whatever interval they offer these courses to be certified, but also train for Rumi as well. And so this has gone to the Planning Commission. They thought it was a good reuse of this building. It shouldn't sit empty, it should be utilized, and it makes great sense to use it in a way that would really be in total, I guess, harmony with what's going on right next door in the larger building, which is care for patients and for residents. So both at the Planning Commission staff level, we support the reuse of that building for the training of certified nursing assistants. And that is basically what this development agreement amendment allows for Rumi to be able to do. I think one other thing that should be noted is it does allow for a small sign on that building that would identify it as being a different business. And I think it allows for a small sign at the monument sign as well, just so anyone who'd be coming there for a course would know that up this long driveway where you can't even see a building, up this wooded kind of corridor, that's where you need to go. So those are the only amendments that are really of any substance, and we have no concerns with what's being proposed and would support the approval of this amendment.
Is it so-called, how do you say it, so-called or so?
Rumi Shahzad, New Hope, White Lake, 450 South Williams Lake Road. So Doug and Stephanie Sokol, who were here at the Planning Commission meeting, are both nurses, and they run Sokol healthcare training for CNAs. Currently, they have a location in Grand Blanc, and they would, the two husband and wife nurses would have that training set up in our remote building. Yep.
Okay, it makes perfect sense.
It does.
It's perfectly good use. I mean, I don't see it being an issue. It's in a great little spot, as we all know, back in the Sugar Bowl, so it's a great place. Anybody have any further questions? If not, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the New Hope amended planned development agreement as submitted, subject to Planning Department finalization and/or attorney review, and supervisor allowed to sign any necessary documents.
Support.
Motion, support, all in favor? Aye. There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks. Request to approve Huron Valley Youth Assist Services Agreement for Youth Services fiscal year 2024, 2025. As you know, in the past, we have had to have some services that get provided to us through this agreement, and the township is now at that crossroad again. It has been beneficial. I think the chief would say that. It is definitely a program that helps our kids. It's $9,606 would be the contribution for is that correct? Let me make sure my amount is correct here. That's what I have.
I believe it is, 9606.
That's what I have written here, so.
9606 is what I have.
Okay, so we're all on the same page on that. Any questions or comments from the board? I think it's a good cause.
Supervisor, what line item, what budget line item would that come out of?
I believe this did come out of general, okay?
Okay.
Last year.
Used to be CDGB funds, but I don't believe
No, we
that they're
don't.
available anymore.
No, they pretty well.
Rings a bell.
Okay.
Used to be.
Yes.
Okay, that was a motion.
I'll make this motion I make the motion to do the agreement between White Lake Township and Huron Valley Youth Services for the Youth Assistant Services, not to exceed the amount of $9,606.
Support.
And authorize the supervisor to sign.
Wait, what he said.
That's what I said. That's what he said.
I'll amend my support.
He'll amend the support. A motion from Andrea. Scott supported. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you. Resolution 24-042 to approve retainer agreement with Benzinski and Company for limited tax general obligation bond series 2024. Well, as you all know, we are going to be entering into a bond sale at some point in time here in the very near future for the part of the financial mechanism for the town center and the public safety building. And this is an engagement letter. We have used Benzinski before, but Mr. Roman, this is your wheelhouse. There you go.
Well, yeah, so, as you guys know, in order to bond out, we are required to use a municipal advisor, financial advisor, and we've always used Benzinski and Associates. So this is in regard to our $29 million bond, that, we approved a couple of years ago already. And, in order to have Benzinski act as our municipal financial advisor, this is the agreement and resolution that we're asking to be reviewed and signed by the supervisor, and that we not spend any more than $59,000 I'm just gonna make it $60,000.
That's a lot
That's in the
easier.
form of a motion, and to approve resolution 24-042.
Okay, I will support that.
And allow the township supervisor to sign?
Yes.
I did hear that in there, I think.
Because it's financial, do a roll call. It's fine.
I will do a roll call.
Supervisor Kowal?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees? Trustee Powell?
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles?
Yes.
Treasurer Roman?
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes.
Very good. Next item L, request to transfer funds from improvement revolving fund, new township building. Mr. Roman.
Yeah, so, in 2023, this board approved transfers of $2.5 million out of the funds, that are on that agenda item. And, I'm asking that we make additional transfers in 2024. I did run these by our accountant, and, Elaine, she actually slashed some of my numbers down. But, I think these are still pretty good contributions. So I'm asking the board to approve $1,635,000 of improvements as listed on 9L to the improvement revolving fund to be used for the construction of the new buildings.
Any
And that's in the
questions?
form of a motion.
Okay, any questions, comments?
Support.
Support? We have motion, we have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Transfer. I'm not spending anything.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, next item is discussion regarding Pinecrest Stormwater Drainage System. For those of you who may or may not remember that particular, whether it's the Pinecrest subdivision of which we facilitated putting in a sewer main in here a couple of years ago, and there's another Pinecrest 2 or whatever it is,
Meadows.
Thank you. That sits above that particular area geographically, and it's a similar situation that we had over at Settlers Point, where they had a water pond for their means of drainage that was not maintained and now has gotten dysfunctional. Some time ago, so long ago, I can't remember, we reached out to the residents of that particular area and heard nothing. We even set up a special meeting here at the annex, and not a single person showed, and it was rather interesting. So the problem persists. It's quite apparent that no one up there is going to take the initiative to move forward with it. It's not that they may not want to take care of it, but I do not believe any way, shape, or form they're going to take the initiative. So the township has the option of doing a forced SAD to fix it or initiate litigation. And that's why it's before this board right now. The pros, the cons. Counselor?
Just to add a little bit, this is something that I know Aaron and I in the supervisor's office have worked on for years. We have been getting complaints because of significant flooding issues. We've made a lot of efforts. I was here for the meeting. We scheduled the meeting and notified everybody in the neighborhood to come out so we can have a discussion about what the options are. Certainly a lawsuit is not anything anybody wants, but it has to be repaired. And so that's why we talked about our only options at this point are a township-initiated SAD to fix it or initiating litigation to fix it. In any case, those are the only options.
Do we know how many properties?
11.
11, correct.
So it would
That's
be
where
an
I'm
SAD
trying
of
to
11
remember that.
homes.
11.
Okay, do we have any idea of money needed?
Mr. Potter?
No, we do not have cost estimates for the repair.
Okay. And we've tried to approach these people, right?
Yeah, several
have.
times.
We approached these folks back in 2023, and at that time, we did title search for all of the easements, agreements, any kind of storm-related information from both the Pinecrest Shores neighborhood and the Pinecrest Meadows neighborhood.
Take a seat.
So there is a maintenance agreement for the basin. We did contact all 11 residents in the neighborhood to let them know of their requirement to maintain this basin. Some of the residents in the area did reach out to me, and we were working with them. They also put me in touch with the original builder of the neighborhood, who still owned, at that time, 4 lots. And they were moving forward with getting cost estimates. I know they did reach out to Kieft Engineering. They did receive a cost estimate for just the engineering. That was $11,000 some dollars. At that time, they elected not to move forward with it. So as Mr. Supervisor Kowal alluded, we scheduled a meeting, advertised the meeting to all 11 residences, held it here in this room to discuss their, the pertinent legal documents. There was a consent judgment, an amended plat, and an agreement for maintenance of the basin and the outlet piping. Unfortunately, the only folks in the meeting were the 3 of us, and none of the residents or the builder showed up to the meeting. So at this point, we've done everything that we can really do short of moving forward through legal means to compel these folks to maintain this. It was part of their neighborhood. It was included in the amended
Who
plat.
did the engineering estimate? Was that DLZ?
Kieft.
Keith
It
Engineering.
was Keith.
That was just engineering estimate, or was that construction
No,
estimate?
that was that was a cost estimate for the engineering and surveying from Kieft Engineering. So, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I just, and I'm not sure if we're all on the same page, I just wanted to understand the problem totally. So maybe you could bring me up to speed on exactly what's happening.
So the 11 homes are part of Pinecrest Meadows. They have a storm basin that collects stormwater flow and retains it. The basin was designed to outlet the flow over a period of time in a controlled release. And that outlet pathway, eventually through an amended plat, so there was a lawsuit between the original developer and the township for approval. I guess the township did not approve the original plat because there was no outlet pathway for drainage. So that went to court. There was an amended plat, an agreement that they were going to obtain an easement for an outlet pathway, which they did. Now, since then, once that got built, the way that neighborhood is situated, it is just north of Pinecrest Shores. And you may remember Pinecrest Shores, we did a sanitary SAD a couple years ago, put sewer around the north side of Bogey Lake. So this neighborhood has a storm basin that lies just north of Pinecrest Shores and Pinecrest Drive along the lake. The outlet pathway flows out of that basin's filter through along a sidewalk path through Pinecrest Drive and out to the lake. None of that's been maintained. And that basin is essentially retaining no flow and outletting at the overflow continuously every time it rains. So it's exactly like Settler's Point in that essentially it's just filled up with sediment, which is what it's designed to do. It's designed to clean that flow. And eventually the sediment needs to be removed and establish the volume of the basin. And they just need to jet that outlet and make sure that it works.
So the water's flowing south, correct?
It's flowing south, and unfortunately, instead of flowing through the pipe, it's flowing over land, which is private property, and damaging the road as well.
Okay, so we know there's a problem. We know that it's ongoing, it's continuing, and now we need to decide which course of action we're going to take. So I want to hear from council on either direction, so.
I mean, you don't have much of a choice unless they voluntarily repair it themselves. You have 2 options: to establish a township-initiated SAD or initiate litigation against the homeowners.
How would that work as far as
You'd
cash
have-
flow?
No, you'd be paying that cost of litigation if you went that route.
Maybe it's cheaper
Now,
to
with the
fix it
SAD, would
ourselves.
we use PA 188 money
Yep, it's a public improvement.
and then collect over and how many years would you suggest?
Depends on the cost.
The volume of the dollars.
You'd want to wait to get an estimate first to determine the cost, so it's affordable.
Yeah,
I mean,
unlike
most of our SADs, I think, are 10 years.
most are, we've had a couple sanitary SADs recently that were 15-year. Unlike Settlers Point, this is not anywhere near as large of a project as Settlers Point. There are no, we're not removing a forest from what was supposed to be a basin. Settlers Point was 2 basins, and, they were much larger areas. This is a smaller basin, access is good. Like Pat McWilliams, the engineer that provided them the estimate, was kind enough to provide that to me as well. So I don't think that the cost of the project is going to be anywhere near the size and scope, or the difficulty of the project is going to be anywhere near the size and scope of Settlers Point. This is going to be a much more cookie-cutter project.
Question, so if we create the SAD, how often does that basin need to be maintained? Is it an annual cleaning, or is it, or Mike, would you know?
Well, it typically, only when a problem happens, so you're talking most basins are, nobody takes care of them until they're forced to. That's most of the time. And it's typically 15, 20 years maybe before somebody realizes that it's not functioning properly.
This wouldn't be an ongoing SAD.
No, this is-
It would be a one-time
One-time.
fix.
It's one-time fix. Again, very much like Settlers Point. Settlers Point was built, and lo and behold, just about 15 to 18 years after its development, it went in default, so to speak. The system wasn't functioning properly. So that's why we were called in, because they came to us and said, hey, will you help us? And in this case, these folks have not taken our invitation, our multiple invitations, to help remedy the problem that's impacting their neighbors. So I want to, we have to figure out as a board as to which direction is going to be the best course of action for us to take. So if we push the issue as a township-wide initiated SAD, I just want to know what the total pitfalls are going to be about it getting torpedoed and then have to go into litigation, so.
Yeah. Before the applicant speaks.
He's not an applicant, he's a neighbor.
Neighbor, okay.
He's a concerned neighbor.
Concerned neighbor, then. So I have a couple questions. First of all, I can't believe it's $11,000 engineering to just put the basin back to its original shape. I mean, it's almost like calling in a contractor and saying, you know what? This basin's filled in, dig it out. And to have $11,000 in engineering, that there's something wrong there. I also wanted to point out that I think the best approach is a township-initiated SAD. I've brought that concept before the board in the past, because in this case, you're not going to get a petition of the people asking you to establish an SAD, because they don't want to do anything. So I do want to remind the board that 20% of the people, if they sign a petition against it, then we're in litigation anyway. But that being said, I also wanted to ask, it's a little different than Settlers Point, because Settlers Point had an outlet into the road commission right of way, and so there was damage, flooded. The impact was going to be tremendous if in fact it wasn't taken care of. In this case, the end result is an excessive flow of water into a lake, which is considered an ultimate outlet.
Well, it's not just that.
Let me continue just for a little bit. Is it flowing into a township-owned right-of-way instead of a private easement that then should be litigated by the private entities instead of the township getting involved?
So that's actually the second portion of that is a good question, and we talked about that, because originally, before we discovered before we conducted the title search through our attorney's office, it was thought to be a private party matter.
Yeah.
But there is an agreement for maintenance of this basin and the outlet path that identifies exactly what should happen if it does not get maintained.
Okay.
And the township is involved in this agreement. Now, on the subject of it just outletting more flow into the lake, that's not correct. The drainage pathway, the piping has blocked many times and damaged the road and has damaged several neighbors' properties in Pinecrest Shores neighborhood. So there is where the problem started, and that's where the complaint started.
So the damaged parties could institute a lawsuit.
Yeah, no, I'm not
could
gonna
if
go
we
there.
don't wanna
I think
do what
township
we're
just
required.
needs to initiate an
Okay.
SAD. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Hey, I'm just laying it out as to the
I am
options.
not gonna put the burden on these residents. to
Mr.
go
Supervisor,
forward with it. No way.
This board wants to know the options. You brought it before the
That's not
board
one
for
of
the
them.
options, and yet you're shutting down an option without
It's-
letting it be presented.
It does, it
I
might.
just wanted the board to know, that's all. Okay?
Asking other persons to initiate something that the township clearly should be helpful on is trying to blow it off on them, and I will not do that.
And I understand, and I'm in agreements with you, but it's a reality.
I wouldn't,
Okay.
I wouldn't even have brought it up, because I
Okay.
wouldn't even consider that shunning that responsibility.
I don't know as much as you do, so that's why I brought it up.
What is, you said that the agreement mentions the township. Can you go into a little more as to what you mean?
Well, I have the agreement right here in front of me. The agreement was between White Lake Township and the builder, Woodcraft Homes Incorporated Employees Pension Fund. Apparently, this was built on a pension fund. And the agreement basically states that the builder is going to agree to maintain the basin, I'm paraphrasing. And if they don't agree to maintain the basin, that the township will step in and maintain it. Basically, including all costs, actual costs of the maintenance, including 25%
That's normal.
for administration fees. All maintenance would then be portioned. Unlike our modern agreements, this was written back in 1998. Unlike our modern agreements, which identify special assessment district as our methodology of collecting that money from you, this basically says that we're going to collect it and bill you. So this agreement allows the township to come into that property with our contractor and all the costs associated with that project, plus the 25% administration fee, we would then divvy up between the 11 properties and bill them.
Okay, Mr. Potter, Counselor wants to interject here.
If I can add a little bit of information to this. We would have prepared a more formal memo. There's a 1992 consent judgment that was entered. It resolved a lawsuit that was filed by the developer against the township for failing to approve the subdivision plat for Pinecrest Meadows. The court ordered in that consent judgment that the township approve the plat on the following conditions. 1, developer must acquire easements over property located outside of the boundaries of Pinecrest Meadows to install a positive outlet drain leading to the retention basin located within the plat boundaries to the 12-inch outlet pipe leading to Bogey Lake. That pipe is located between lots 51 and 52 of Pinecrest Shores Number 2. See Exhibit B in the original plat for Pinecrest Meadow. It shows the positive outlet drain west of Lot 30 on Pinecrest Shores, which drain leads to Pinecrest Drive. The second condition was that the developer and the township to enter into an agreement which places maintenance responsibility for the stormwater drainage system, including the positive outlet drain, on the lot owners of Pinecrest Meadows. And if they fail to maintain, the township will be allowed to maintain and bill the lot owners for the expense plus an admin fee. Then in 1993, there was a deed of easement and agreement for maintenance, and that was the requirement of the consent judgment that this agreement be entered into. And it provides that the control and jurisdiction of the drainage facilities vested in the developer until such time as the subdivision is formed. Once a subdivision is formed, the association assumes control and jurisdiction of the drainage facility. If no association, then the lot owners have control and jurisdiction. In any case, the cost of maintaining and repairing the drainage facility is on whichever entity which has control and jurisdiction of that drainage facility. If they fail to maintain, the township may maintain and assess the cost against the entity which has control and jurisdiction of the drainage facility.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm going to get to you. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to,
Stuff that'll clear this all up.
yeah, well, we're going to get to you just.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah,
Thank
trust
you,
me,
Council.
we know. All right, okay, everybody good? Because I want to let
Yeah,
Rick speak.
by all means.
Come up to the podium, sir.
We'll start with pictures.
Can you say your name, sir?
I'm Rick Deary.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
the president of Pinecrest Shores Homeowners Association. I've been there for like 10 years. Just to go to you. These are for the folks that know what topography and maps are and stuff that show the inverts and everything in the lake. Anybody else? I know you're an engineer. You'll probably really like one of these too. Sorry about my, let's do this. We don't want to look at it anyway.
We can look and just pass them down. Whoever wants to.
You'll see. This retention pond we're talking about is in the back subdivision that's about 35 feet higher than the lake
Sir, can you do
elevation.
me a favor and talk into the microphone?
You have
where
to speak
live?
into the microphone because that's our
the
broadcast.
broadcaster and the recorder needs to hear your voice on the microphone.
Out to the lake.
I've been there.
That's the problem. You've been there.
I've been there.
You've been there, we've all been there. We're fighting a judgment that was given to us, you know about it, years ago. Look at the damage that this has done to the lake. Look at the damage it's done to the homeowners.
Hey, Rick, I've been out here, but we need you to get in front of the microphone when you're speaking on this. So
Yeah, see where it is, it's up there.
He's done his
That's where it
homework.
comes across the road and then makes its way through here.
Mr. Supervisor,
Yes.
Mr. Supervisor. First off, I want to tell you, I take exception to your saying you invited people up here and nobody's come to talk about this.
We do, excuse me, sir, I run this meeting, okay?
I
And you will
appreciate that.
speak when I allow you to speak, and it's generally after the board has its total discussion. Then we like to listen, as we do for everyone else, okay? So we don't interrupt the board when the board is in its deliberation, okay?
I
Now
apologize
you-
for my,
Okay, so that's the
reactions.
protocol and etiquette here. Okay, so please carry on.
okay. So, June 21st, 2022, my assistant came here and gave every one of the board members the lawsuit judgment that was affected by that pond that's behind us. The reason why I'm upset about this is that we pit neighbors against neighbors, and there's a lot of bad blood now. Pointing fingers, whose fault is all this, right? Those folks bought into a neighborhood up there, which, by the way, is not finished, and know nothing about that. They thought it was a park. They've used that retention pond for throwing tree limbs, all the stuff from the neighborhoods in there. That retention pond's about 8 feet deep and it's almost full. You can't walk through it, right? It has an overflow pipe that came, one of the neighbors, in fact, I should probably read this to you. One of the neighbors sold the piece of property to put an overflow in there, okay? Pinecrest Shore subdivision was established in the early mid to 1950s. Most homes were built from the mid-50s to the mid-60s in Ford. Approximately 60 homes are in the subdivision. The HOA was established in 1965. Pinecrest Meadows subdivision, not to be confused, was 1 block north of Pinecrest Shore subdivision, was platted, and homes were built in the 90s. We have exhibits for all this, which you guys all got in that thing that you picked up before. Pinecrest Meadows subdivision is not affiliated with Pinecrest Shore subdivision. The builders of Pinecrest Meadows subdivision on Fieldcrest Meadows Drive in White Lake Township is the Woodcraft Homes Incorporated Employees Pension Trust Fund, which able to obtain an easement from the property owner at 1228 Pinecrest Drive that would give them the access they need to install a positive drain from the new subdivision retention pond that would go underneath the Pinecrest Drive, hook up to an existing drainage on the south side of Pinecrest Drive to empty into Bogey Lake. Okay? That pipe was never according to our county, was never given a permit to put in that pipe. They said it was not buried deep enough, there's not enough stuff around it, it wasn't done right, they diagonally cut the asphalt and they cold patched it and they left it. Okay, that specific retention pond and drain had never been maintained. A judgment dated at 8/5/1992 outlines specific responsibilities of the builder. Pinecrest Meadows homeowners and White Lake Township related to the retention pond, drain, and specific fields. No homeowners association was ever established to our knowledge, and there is still several lots that have not been sold or developed. The deed restrictions for the homeowners of Pinecrest Meadows subdivision also include Exhibit C. This deed restrictions were recorded in 1993, approximately a year after the above judgment, and shortly after the builder and the township entered into an agreement. Agreement between the builder and White Lake Township was also recorded on August 9, 1993, and it's got the liver numbers and all that stuff, the liver numbers. And it outlines the responsibility and ownership of the maintenance of the retention pond and the storm drain. The agreement states that the builder is responsible for the maintenance of both the retention pond and the drain pipe that runs underneath Pinecrest Drive until the builder has sold 75% of the lots. He is not. More of the properties in the subdivision of which the homeowners are then responsible for that maintenance. It is also outlined the responsibility of White Lake Township in the event that the pond or storm drain was not maintained. Due to the fact that the retention pond and drain owned by Pinecrest Meadows subdivision was never maintained and oversight by White Lake Township was never performed, has led to some serious, and this is serious, and I don't know why my neighbors that live in this area, why they haven't pulled a lawsuit on all this. I don't think they know about this. Is degrading, heaving of the Pinecrest Drive and subsequent flooding of road and properties and crawl spaces on the east and west sides of the drain, also to other properties in the general vicinity. The road has continued to degrade and many homeowners will take an alternate route from the subdivision in order to go around the huge potholes that continue to get worse as time goes on. There are also serious concerns that the sewage from the septic fields that have not been maintained are flowing directly into the lake. If you read that judgment, they're supposed to every 2 years test all those septic fields in that subdivision, and we as a township are supposed to maintain a log on that. None of it's ever been done. There's also a restriction on fertilizers that has never been done. Look at the picture of the drainage going into that lake and look what it's done. That's 3 years, and you should see it now. There's a plume of shit in our lake, and it keeps on coming. And these heavy rains are bringing more and more. For the first time since I've been there 13 years, they shut our beach down due to E. coli. First time, all right? So it's coming and it's getting worse. So this goes on, I can read for an hour. It's not what I was here to do. What I was here to do is to open this back up, get some positive stuff going with this. The neighbors behind us are livid about this. We can't even sit at the beach with them and talk with them because they think that we're trying to do something. The road 3 weeks ago, the Oakland County Road Commission came over, opened up the road, saw cut 4 foot, replaced their pipe, put a new structure there with a drain thing, dug out some of the ditches and left it. And since they've done that, we have a neighbor right here, we'll tell you, it gets 4 foot of water every time it rains in the ditches because they're not draining properly at all. Now, I was told by the commission, road commission, that the depth of the inverts that was put in by the new sewer systems that's on the north side of the street is not deep enough, and they're running into structure lid problems that are in the trenches itself. So they can't dig properly. In fact, the whole thing is a mess. In today's world, this is a crying shame. Help me out. This is a crying shame. Look at this township and the money. This is an old subdivision. I get all sorts of accolades from the police and the fire departments, how quiet we are, how well we maintain our stuff, and yet we got this road that looks like it just came out of Ukraine. And I'm looking for answers that's gonna take the sting away from neighbor to neighbor stuff here, all right? The neighbors don't like it. I don't like it. This goes back years. It also says, you're saying, is this going to be a one-shot SAD? No. You're going to have to maintain that. You're going to have to maintain the pipe underneath the road. That pipe that's underneath the road right now is not buried deep enough. It's heaving right now. You should see the mess they got out there. The road commission just said, well, we did what we could. And if you look at it, you say, you got to be kidding me. The rest of the road, there's only 100 feet of this road, the size of this room, that is an absolute disaster.
The rest of the road is fine. We can live with it. It's only 100 feet. The problem is underneath that 100 feet are a bunch of private pipes that were never allowed to be put there to start with. And the county's saying, well, if we run into it, we'll just bulkhead it off and we'll send them a notice. Well, floods, it was flooded day before yesterday. This gentleman here, the neighbor, he's got a pump sitting in his drainage ditch, pumping across a driveway to a structure to keep the water off of his front lawn and out of his septic field. Not only that, what do we smell in the water? The whole road has got, there's people that put overflows on the septic fields into their gray water tanks and are pumping it into the ditch. Come to my house in the middle of winter, you've been there? You've been there, you've all seen it. There's grass growing and it's 10 degrees outside and it needs to be cut and it's steaming. 10 degrees outside. Solutions?
That's why
Concerns?
we're here tonight to move this.
2019 was the first picture that I saw of somebody on a wakeboard, his son, going from house to house down a street because it was flooded from stoop to stoop. And you know what the neighbor tells me? Well, every time it floods, we just go get a hotel room for a couple of days. It's sort of fun. And he's got a crawl space. Rick Derry, 1149 Pinecrest Drive. I'm open to anybody coming out and visiting. I'll buy
be
you
there
coffee,
tomorrow.
donuts.
I'll be there tomorrow. Nutty Donuts.
Okay. Make sure you read the judgment. You know what I'm talking about. There's a judgment here. We can't get around it. We've had all these years since 92 where we didn't have to pay for any of the maintenance, and now look at it, it hits like a brick. There's trees in that retention pond that got 12-inch bases on them. Yeah. How many year old is that?
Well, Mr. Potter has tried to move things along. We have tried one process, and now this is the other process of which we are going to make a decision as a board, which one to execute. So it will go forward from this point forward. So it just took time to work it through. You have to give people an opportunity. You do not strong arm. As you are feeling.
22.
As you are
19.
These people don't care. As you are feeling that the township may not be doing anything, I guarantee you the persons that we are going to put forth to correct this problem, the financial burden, they are going to have a whole different attitude. So it's somewhere in between. We have to find and do our job to protect your interest, and it is the interest of this board to do so. Okay.
Thank you. And thank you, board. And I appreciate all of you to come out and see what we do in the older neighborhoods that are supporting all the new stuff that's going on here.
Your area is very neat and clean, and it was very nice to have a group of people that were banging on the drum. How soon can we get the sewer in? How soon can we get the sewer in? Where most people are running from that petition, okay? So Mr. Potter and I have lots of experience and lots of appreciation for all the things that were done over there to extend the ability to have that sewer system in place.
I'll be glad to buy you coffee.
Okay, good.
Come see me. Thank you. Thank you, board.
Thanks. Okay. All right, so takes us back to the decision whether we file litigation or we go SAD. And I tend to listen to Mr. Powell's idea. I kind of like that. Oh, you want to get your 2 cents in?
Yes, of
Okay,
course.
all right, get up in there.
Okay. My name is Tony Meisel, and I'm at 1173 Pinecrest. And just to expound on Rick's, my question would be, and actually my wish would be, is that if and when you proceed with all of this, that you include the diagnosis and reconstruction of all that piping area that goes down to the lake, and then the repair of the road. Because it is all from this drainage problem. It is, it's like having a broken arm and then something else happens and you've got to repair it all. So my wish would be that when you do this, it includes all those other repairs that have been damaged.
Yeah, it would have to be looked at from an engineering standpoint, and I will tell you, it would be more or less the problem as a whole.
Okay.
So I can't guarantee you
No.
everything, but everything you're saying makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Okay. So we would consult with our township engineer most likely.
Is there a way that we can have some input with that and maybe know what's going on with that?
First, we need to find out what the problems
Right.
are on paper, and then we can have a chat after that.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll hold you to that.
I know you will, as you did in the
Good.
past. She was one of the biggest drum beaters for the sewer, by the way.
Yeah, I
Right
remember.
here. So, good job. Okay.
I just want to make a quick comment before we go on. I hear you loud and clear that you're so frustrated, and they have really tried. I've been in contact with some of these neighbors. They've really tried to seek assistance from the township. So I'm really hoping that this board, I know we all heard them and we can find a resolution for them. And they've handled it with a lot of grace. They don't want to be pitted against their own neighbors and the adjacent neighborhood. So they're feeling frustrated. Their frustrations are valid. They have been seeking help, from my understanding, for a long time from the township, through the water department. It's just now come to the board, so give us a minute to digest it and work it through. But I just want you to know that I hear you. Your concerns are valid, your frustration's valid, and I think we can come up with something here. So thanks for coming tonight.
All right, so we need to approach it, and I think I like the special, the forced SAD.
Oh, I totally agree. That's the way to go, but I'm just going to tell you from what and I've not done any of the study, but based upon what I've heard, it's now complicated tremendously because it's not just a basin in an adjacent subdivision that needs to be dealt with via an SAD. But if the outlet pipe comes all the way through, and if any water at all from that other subdivision goes into any of that piping, that's contributing to the issue of the flow from their subdivision out to Bogey Lake as well. And so, and now you've got the road commission involved because it goes under their right of way. And the issue about leaking septic fields and pumping gray water into storm sewer systems, now that's the Oakland County Health Department. So the original request to establish an SAD, a board motioned SAD for the cleaning of the detention basin, it is still valid, but it may snowball into a great deal more because the pipe going.
Mr. Potter's going to comment.
Yeah. So that being said, I'm a little bit at a loss now, so.
Mr. Potter?
Well, yeah, you are correct. There's multiple agencies that are going to be involved. I mean, there's a process for finding and eliminating failed septic fields.
Yep.
That is not part of this.
Okay.
This is a separate issue. So, but there are other, this maintenance agreement does identify the maintenance responsibility for the outlet pathway. So, I mean, I would really like to hear Lisa's comments on what she thinks is the best way forward, and I would take her advice.
I think we need to have a little review of this, possibly at the DPS Advisory Committee level. And
This was on the agenda for discussion.
correct.
Okay.
It's gone in, it's
Asking for any-
discussed all right.
Yeah.
And the purpose of that is to really get a feel for what you were leaning towards before we spent any more time and money sorting things out. I don't know if this is an appropriate time, maybe, I guess, taking it to your.
Yeah, we need to go to the
and then
DPS Advisory
postpone it
Committee.
for the next meeting for a decision, but that, as you know, will delay it.
Well, it's not so much a delaying it as it is making sure we do it right.
Right, we need more information.
So-
That is the most important.
Yeah, that's the most
factor,
important thing.
Is
So I-
that because
I'm-
it is going to be complicated, we need to make sure that it's done right the first time.
Yeah, in the case of doing this, what I would like to do, I would like to defer this to the DPS Advisory Committee for further study at its next meeting, which is pretty close.
I got a question.
Add it to the agenda.
Just real
Yes.
quick, based on your expertise, it sounds like not only does the basin have to be cleaned out, we're gonna have to dig out that pipe,
Well, we don't know.
go down. I mean, just from what, I'm just saying.
The
what you
entire
were saying.
route from the basin down to the lake.
Clean it all up,
Yeah, we need to find
and
out
make it whole.
how and what. And before anybody can make a comment, need to get some information.
Yeah, and how it relates to the agreement for this particular purpose, which we know we're authorized to pursue.
Correct.
And we're going to hire an engineer to determine what the deficiencies are and what damage has been caused by the deficiencies. That will be determined by an engineer, a professional engineer.
Okay, I'm going to move this forward. I'm going to make a motion to defer this to the.
You don't even have to, it's not
Well,
for
I'm
discussion.
still going to do it because I want everybody to be on the bus, okay? I'm going to make a motion to defer this to the DPS Advisory Committee for further action forthwith.
Support.
I have motion, I have support. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Take a 5-minute recess. much be carried through from the union to the non-union. There were adjustments in certain departments in certain areas, but there were other ones that had adjustments and a cost of living adjustment of 3%. And the non-union are seeking the 3% to be effective, I believe, in September payroll. So I think that's correct. So it has been done in the past, and we did not get around to it. Plus, we also need to expand our one-year agreement, which is the contract extension with the union workforce representing police, patrol, command, career firefighters, and part-time firefighters, and general township employees for the period of January 1, 2026 through December 31st, 2026. We were able to negotiate that extension, which kind of puts everything to bed until the end of 26, which is done. Okay? Questions, comments? You can start either way.
I guess I just have a couple questions
Yes.
because for clarification purposes. Did the non-union employees get an equal amount or greater increase in their salary as the contract itself to the union employees stated? Because it's my understanding, and correct me if this is incorrect, that's why I'm asking it, that all the employees, the non-union and union employees, did in fact get the exact same cost increase that's identified in the contract, but maybe they're questioning the contract signing bonus, which is not in the contract. It was a bonus, a 3% bonus for signing the additional contract. That is not correct, you're saying? Okay.
This is the 3% that was doled out to some and not to others, okay?
When you say doled out to some and not to others, what do you mean?
Union and
Per their contract?
their contract, but
Okay.
not to the, this is no different than what the township's done for the last 40 years. They've always followed that suit. They would adopt these particular measures because it's just how it's been done as a guideline. We let the unions come up with the solution, and then the non-unions and elected would follow suit. So there was a gap in that.
Which increase that's in the union contract did the non-union employees not get?
The 3%.
But they
The
got a
3%.
3%, they got a 3% in January, right? Is that the one you're talking about?
And I guess, I'll be happy, I mean, these
Please.
guys are all with me in the group, and there are a bunch of others here too. We're talking about the 3% that we're very glad that the union group got as an adjustment, I think at the December meeting. It was December of 2023. It was last year. Yes. The police and fire contracts were also addressed back in November, December. I think that all happened around the same time. What did not happen was the parity that has existed in our entire careers here and beyond, as we believe it. And, I guess I'd like to think it just was an oversight. It just didn't happen. And that's really, that's neither here nor there. But at this point, that's the request of the non-union group, is that we be put on, parity with that 3%.
So I had another question. Did any of the non-union personnel get any raise at all in that same year that the union people did not get?
There may have been prior to that, not necessarily that year, but even prior to a year or two before that, there was some adjustments to positions within the township. Yes.
So the union people, see, that's kind of a problem that I have with committees that study things, because this group says you got a raise back then, and so we need one, and then another group says you got a raise now because of them, and everybody uses the raise they got previously to justify a raise in the future, and it just snowballs from that. So I'm just trying to understand the issues, and so I appreciate you sharing that. So the department heads,
We just didn't follow tradition.
the department heads did, however, get an adjustment.
Not all of them.
That,
But
not
they
all of
were all
them.
looked at. They were all looked at and reviewed.
So the union probably saw that and said, well, wait a second, how come they get a raise and we didn't?
No.
In their contract
They-
negotiations,
they
it didn't,
actually-
that never came up.
That never happened. Okay.
Okay.
The township wanted to have a good plan for the employees, for employee retention and things of that nature. That's how that was done.
Okay,
It was
yeah.
done by a lot of studies that we did here to find out where we were with comparable communities and things of that nature, because frankly, it costs more money to bring people in that aren't familiar with how we operate and function and get them tuned in by that. There's a loss in production.
And I'm in favor of that, and I voted for it, and I understood it, and I pushed for it.
Same
So
thing.
I totally
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to understand the
That's-
relationship between the union and non-union.
So that's where that was. The linchpin was the 3% of cost of living. That was indeed doled out to some, but not to others.
And that was in December, and they got another one in January?
They got that as part of their contractual agreement.
Yes, every
Okay.
January.
So it was more or less a 3%. Some would not call it a cost of living. I'm going to call it what most people see it as. It was a cost of living of 3%. Okay, that's all it was, period. That's
Okay.
it.
Thank you.
Mr. Roman.
So, in 12 years on this board, nothing irks me as much as this, okay? This is nothing more than a double dip. And the people that want this extra money, they're double dipping. So, this is from our labor attorney.
You don't read Labor Council's opinion at a public meeting.
I'm reading this,
No,
okay?
you're not.
I'm reading this.
It's
Michael,
attorney-client privilege.
It's directly
This is-
violation of
oh,
attorney-client
okay,
privilege.
I'll put it down, and I won't use labor language, I'll use Mike Roman language. So we wanted to do a township-wide labor study, and that's what we did, okay? We started with the, township employees and elected officials. Then we did, the first round of adjustments were really the department heads. We looked at all the department heads. We didn't give every department head a pay raise, but we looked at them all. Okay, those reviews included the police chief, the fire chief, planning director, the DPS director, the finance director as well. Then we looked at the elected officials and deputies, okay? Then we did the fire union and the police unions. The only union that was left was MAPE, and this board wanted MAPE to be looked at. So we did MAPE. Once MAPE was done, that was it, okay? These were not pay raises as usual. It was a one-time labor study, okay? And when MAPE was done, the whole process was done. It was ended. And now you got a group of employees coming back, and they're looking at the MAPE adjustment that we gave, and they're saying, hey, we want a little piece of that, okay? Now, in the ordinary course of negotiations, I don't have a problem with what you're saying, okay? But this was a special round where every group of employees was looked at, and you guys went first, okay? You guys went first in general. You got bigger pay raises than the MAPE people. And now you're looking into MAPE and saying, hey, you know what? We want a little piece of what they got. So in my mind, it's nothing more than a double dip. Some of the other things that I just wanted to touch on is, we're looking at spending, Anthony, $42 million now?
If we're lucky.
$42 million, and now we want to give out more pay raises, okay? With the pay raises come legacy costs. There's nothing in here that tells me how much this is
I
going
can
to
tell
run
you
us.
exactly how much it's
How
going to
much is
cost.
it going to run us?
$46,000 a year.
Okay, your numbers are way low.
Well, no, I got them from the number one authority.
Well-
With total cost, with pension and employer taxes of $66,300.
Okay, whatever your number is, or whatever my number is, that's every year, okay? It's not a one-time hit, it's every year. So I had a problem with that as well.
And,
The resolution that's provided, okay, I don't know if you guys have a copy of the resolution, but the pay raises for January 1st, 2025 and 2026, those have already been approved twice. Okay? I have no problem with those. My problem is the September 7th, 3%. That, in my mind, is the double dip. Another question I had is, why did this come right after the election? I mean, that really stinks to me. The timing is it's just wrong. So I think the public should be disgusted if we pass this. And, you know, I think for the first time in 12 years, I'm actually embarrassed that this even came to us. So I'm done.
Good. When it started, when the adjustment started, it was started even pre-COVID, some of that stuff. And with the rampant inflation and all the other things that happened, that's where I think there's a gap in what the connection is. It's not, from where I stand and look at it, as anyone being greedy. I think it's just trying to follow the same parity that this township has done on every contract, which usually is about every 4 years, as they have traditionally done. And it is now caught up to a certain point. It just happens that this ship has been brought before this board at this time, and employees have requested it, and therefore I have brought it to the board.
I can appreciate you bringing it,
So,
Rick, but you
It's
know,
my job as the supervisor, and I am the ultimate HR person, and I have to try to walk that fine line of balance of keeping people here. Well, that's it, keeping people here. That would be one thing, because when you look out in the workplace, there's always an opportunity. And again, it costs us a tremendous amount of time and lost production, productivity, customer service, efficiency, shall I go on? When you bring people in, you're grinning because you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
I
it's
just have
a,
to say something. We as
I'm not done.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so the 3% is a modest that will affect approximately 19 employees. And I believe that these people are all very hardworking and are dedicated to the township and feel that they just want to have a fair shake of what has been followed in the past. And it's, again, put before me, so I wanted to bring it before this board. I do have the numbers, I've given them to you, and I do understand there's costs, but there, again, there's a tremendous amount of cost on the other end of it. And good people are good people to keep, and that's very important.
Can I just make one more comment before Anthony goes? Just so everyone knows, this includes giving ourselves pay raises. And I wanted to make sure everyone knows.
It, again, follows the traditional guideline that has been set up and this township has operated on, I don't even know for how long, okay? A lot longer before I got here, okay? And I've had conversations with the persons that have made this request, and I have said, done, finito, finish. I don't want anybody coming to my door. I don't want to hear about it, you know, anything extra. We've got commitments that we're going to be doing here at the township, and this has got to run us. And then, of course, we negotiated a 1 additional year, so it'll run through 26. So we will know what our course is up until that time, and then we'll see, depending on potentially this election cycle, whether we're going to have anything or we're going to go back to the old days where there'll be a freeze on all raises for 6 or 8 years. Hard to say. My crystal ball is a little foggy this morning when I got up. Mr. Noble.
Sorry to interrupt you. We all got raises, correct? The elected.
At some point,
And some people, I'm talking now. Let me finish.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to clarify.
I know to clarify it. Sean got a raise, Aaron got a raise, Nick got adjusted, the police chief did not get adjusted, the fire chief did not get adjusted for my, correct?
You know what? There's been. That's correct.
Correct, okay, thank you. So life isn't fair, and I also had in-depth conversations with the labor attorney during this process to get the contract set up to help put insight. I've sat on both sides of this, negotiating union contracts as a union employee. I personally at first looked at it and thought, why not? Till I looked into it further and I see it is, we've gotten our 3%. You're right, absolutely. We get the 3%. To me, this was to give that lower unit a 3% raise. That's what I'm gonna say. You can't compare the police and fire chief, no offense to anybody else that's in management, because if you want those big raises, wait, I can use Wild Lake Police and Fire, they're making over, Wild Lake is 120. Smaller than us. You can't compare police and fire to DPS, and you can't compare DPS to community service. And they're just different animals. So that's how I look at it. So to say it's fair, it's not fair. To say, okay, everybody gets this, because these two departments, I'm going to point them out, if you did another study of that, you're going to see that they make more money. And just about all the surrounding departments, Waterford, Wild Lake, probably Wolverine Lake if I had to guess now. Chief, do you know what Wolverine Lake Police Chief makes now?
I do. He is, there could be 107.
107. They're approximately, what, Mike, about a square mile?
Yes, well, 2 square miles.
2 square miles. So I have gratitude for what I have, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. And we do have a huge building coming in front of us. We're lucky, 42 million. We've been chopping at it little by little. So that's my feelings on it. So, you can't compare one unit to the other, and we did get raises. And I was very grateful that when we had the elected officials and the trustees, along with some of the board, there was people that didn't get, to your point, didn't get looked at. But I have gratitude for it, and that's why that's my position on it.
Okay.
We both
Mr.
have one quick.
Ruggles.
So are we able to amend this resolution tonight to exclude the elected officials? Yes? They can
I
do
would
that.
imagine we could do anything with it. What is your thought process?
I would do that to start with.
Pardon?
I would exclude the elected officials for sure.
Okay. You could do that, but then you are going to go right back into the pot of which took a long time for the elected officials to get out of, where the pay was down here and some staff were up here. And it just, there was not an equitable result.
And to his point, we went 30 years without having that adjustment. No fault to anybody on this board. But we researched it and it went back close to 30 years.
So if you do that, you're going to reset the clock.
And if you remember when we did the in-house, along with the trustees, we set it so it's not getting away from each other. You got the supervisor at 100%. We would be the treasurer and the clerk at 95%, and the deputies would at 85%. So it keeps in parity.
I understand.
Now, we're not going to catch up to these guys, and I don't expect to.
I understand that, but my point is that I'm not going to vote in favor of giving myself a raise tonight, but I would feel differently about them. So, that's what I'm talking about with this, and it's kind of, what you're bringing up is a little bit different subject matter, but.
We're just going to revisit it down the road. I guess that's what he
Yeah,
was
that's
trying
all.
to say.
I'm just saying, that was one of the major reasons that all that research was done, was so that it would put things at parity, and then this was following suit, keeping things at parity. If you change it, you're just pushing the clock back again, which, this board may not address, but some future board's going to have to address.
I
at some
understand,
point.
but, we got a raise already, so I'm all set.
Everybody got something. There's no question about it, except some people didn't get some of the stuff that they should have gotten.
I imagine the rest of the board agrees with me.
Yeah,
Right,
some-
I would
some of the
disassemble this
positions-
as well, because first of all, to the trustees, a raise is like $20 a month. So I mean, but a raise to the 3 in-house might be more significant. A raise to the deputies is more significant. And we did touch each deputy. When we gave raises, each elected official got one. So I normally vote against raises for myself or the board, but I never vote against raises for our staff. Our staff is top-notch to me. They deserve all the support in the world. This board can walk away, the three in-house elected officials can comfortably walk away from the township, and this township still runs because of our department heads and our chiefs. So they have my full support in this, but I would like to see this resolution probably disassembled and take out the elected officials and deputies.
I'd like to see it tabled and do a wage study for the chiefs.
Quite frankly, I was going to vote no on the raise of the trustees. I felt it was a huge raise when we got it for trustees. And so but I bought into the fact that it was a parity analysis based upon other communities, not internal, but other communities. So now what we're doing is we'd be taking a 3%, so the other communities can say parity, we get 3% too. And so it just never ends, parity, 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 all the way up. So I am in total support of the staff. They know that we can't pay them enough as to what they're worth. But me, I will vote no if the elected officials are still in here. So I'd like to deal with that issue on a vote before we vote on the other issue.
Sounds like we need to change the whole resolution and table it.
Exactly.
Sounds like, I mean, could you guys have it in, I'm just gonna ask, we would like to request action tonight, at least on our piece, and if you guys want to take it in two separate questions, I mean, the resolution can be amended or approved subject to an amendment, correct?
So how I feel is if nobody wants to undo this resolution, I would vote yes because I'm not gonna do that to our staff. I'm gonna make sure our staff gets their raise tonight. So, but if the board is comfortable taking that out, then we can work with it in two parts.
We can make a motion to remove that very easily.
I think that, I mean, you guys deserve action tonight.
Yeah, I agree.
So have all these people on this list gotten raises, is what I would like to know. We know about Chief Holland, all the full-time elected officials. We have the full-time employees, the deputies, the non-union and part-time employees. Have they all gotten raises? Are we missing anyone within the township?
Well, they'd be covered in this,
Okay.
in this deal if we just remove the elected officials.
Right, it could be, because my thoughts are kind of like along the same lines as yours, but like, could we not start these increases until January 1st?
Well, they get that already, right?
Because we addressed each debt.
There's a different one that happens in January.
You're right.
The annual one, yeah.
So if the board's waiting for a motion, I'll make a motion.
I didn't think so.
You know, since you're who you are, and you often have words of wisdom, okay? Come on up, Mom. Mary.
Mary Early, 5925 Pine Ridge Court. As you know, John and I come to all the meetings, all the boards, all the committees, all the commissions. We have dealt with every department
How big
in
a
this
raise do you
township.
want, Mary?
Pardon?
You want it on the raises?
No. We have dealt with every department, most recently the police and the fire, and they've both been very helpful, but every department in this township is helpful. Retention is a problem, and money will help alleviate that. The treasurer, the supervisor, and the clerk are full-time employees. The other 4 trustees may or may not have a job outside of what they earn here. And if you're going to get new people ever to run, as people die or leave or move, whatever, they need to get money too. So I think all of the elected officials should get, it's a lousy 3%, sorry. See, I'm wearing blue, I'm a Democrat. I say more money for everybody. So I think 3% is pretty crummy, but anyway, I think everybody ought to be eligible for it, whether you're elected or not elected. So I say go ahead and approve your wage increase. That's how I feel about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? We gave her the floor. More than happy to share. No comment? Hold on. All right, yes. Mr. Ruggles.
Mr. Powell, are you, in your motion, are you going to take out the deputies or leave them in?
Just the elected officials.
Just the elected officials?
But we
Correct.
did address each deputy individually.
I
Can I say
understand.
something
I
real quick?
understand that.
The deputies are tied to the elected officials.
Under the
Okay.
last resolution.
Yes, so,
Oh, I
so
see.
if you take out the electeds, you're taking out the deputies.
Okay.
And therefore you're hurting those employees, but it was set up that way last.
I'm
to-
not
to be
hurting
very-
those employees,
Not-
Anthony.
No, I'm saying it's set up 195 and 85%. That's why it's tied into that resolution, labor-wise.
They were looked at, they were given very
Correct.
sufficient
Can I
raises.
just
Correct,
make another
but it's
comment?
tied into those
Okay,
percentages.
I'm against all these raises, as you can see, okay? But if you're gonna approve for some, you may as well include the electeds, because without doing that, the deputies are gonna get counted out, and that's not fair.
But we could change that as
You
well.
can't. It's tied into the percentage on the
Oh, it's
last
a percentage?
resolution. That, we did that because it was
Yeah.
getting so
Good
out of
point.
whack.
It was so far behind.
And
Good point.
And the question is either we approve it or we don't approve it. And it's like Mary said, it's 3%. We had this issue prior. That's why 30 years of wage study, we had such a gap. So Rick worked on this for what?
That's why we modified it.
Yeah, we
So if-
modified it, but
so
we're
if
creating
an
the
elected
same-
official doesn't like it and wants to leave for 3%, good
No,
riddance.
I'm not saying that, Mike, but that's why we tied it in last time.
Yeah.
like that. In that
Rick-
resolution, that's why it's tied in
That I
together.
understand, yeah.
Rick, the number that you gave us,
Yes.
does that include the elected officials, the
That's everybody.
46,000?
That's all 19 people that are
And that
affected.
includes
Kathy
everybody?
Gordon, everybody.
Okay.
It's, the
Poll
cost
workers.
is really actually minimum to the township. I know it's a quandary, okay, and I've struggled with this because I've had both ends of it. But I'm in a position where people come to me, you know, I've been fondly referred to as dad by certain persons in this organization and groups, and a few other things in those words I can't repeat. But nonetheless, so it's just a question of making a decision. This board is extremely frugal. I challenge anybody, anybody, go out there and look at the things that we've done. Go out and look at all of the processes. We have found the most economical way. We've stretched our dollars. We've done everything that we can. And it's due to the staff that we have. It's due to the people that are sitting at this table right here, right now, okay? All of them, okay? And that's what makes this township efficient. I am now going into my third term as supervisor, my fourth term of being here in the township, 4 years as being an esteemed trustee. And any part of any budget that I was part of has always been balanced, and we had a surplus at the end of the year because we watched where we put our money, okay? We weren't rewarded like a certain city that some people are familiar with here, didn't have enough in their retirement fund, bless you. So the state of Michigan gave them $4 million. What kind of stupidity, yes, I said that. What kind of stupidity is that where you reward bad behavior? Okay? That's absolutely stupid. And you can't fix that sometimes, and apparently Lansing is the problem. But when you have people that are very prudent and treat every dollar that is spent here like it's their own and are very mindful of it, I think this keeps us at parity. I do not want to have any ramifications against any of the deputies because we have outstanding deputies, okay, that do all kind of things and are there to really help be the quarterbacks sometimes when we're trying to do different things. So I guess it's just, it's a tough call, but on the other hand, it is 3%. It's $66,300 to the township from here on out. And there are a couple people, again, that it will
46,
catch.
Rick. Is it 66 or 46?
No, with the benefits, with everything.
66.
It is $66,300, okay? All right?
That makes more sense.
Yeah, that's the total cost.
That's
Okay.
with the benefits, right?
Yeah, that's everything. So, there you go. So I am going to take and put this out there. Do with it what you will. I am going to propose that we adopt Resolution 24-043 that will follow suit as the proposal, as the resolution puts forth, which would have a September 7th 3% increase for the township, the non-union full-time employees, elected officials, deputies, non-union part-time employees, excluding the police chief's salary, cadets, crossing guards, election poll workers, and appointed board of commission members whose wages have previously been handed independently of this resolution. The following wage increases are those of the union workforce set forth September 7.
You meant to say police chief's secretary?
Yes, because she got the 3%.
Okay.
And if you'd like to see that, I can show it.
Confidential employee. We handled her separate, yeah.
She got,
Excluding police
she,
chief, secretary, cadets, crossing
Yeah.
guards, election poll
because she
workers,
was one that got it.
appointed board and commission members.
Correct.
That's what you meant.
Yeah. September 7, 2024, 3%, January 1 following the contract, 2.5, January 1, 26 following contract, 3%. And of course, this extends the contract through December 31st, 2026. That is in the form of a motion. Looking for support.
Support.
I have motion, I have support, roll call vote.
Supervisor Cowell.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Clerk Noble, no. Treasurer Roman.
No.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, moving right along. Request for approval for contract award, bid packet number 2, utilities and site work for new civic center development. We are on our way to the races, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to start moving forward. So, as all of you know, Sean, did you want to?
I was going to just jump in really
Go ahead.
quick
Go ahead.
and say, and I think you all have this letter.
Order, please.
This was a late ad. It kind of fell between the cracks, but if you guys recall, when we bid out all the site work, we had no bidders for the landscape piece, which we had an approximate value set by McCarthy and Smith, who have been excellent at really dialing in on the values of roughly $675,000. We went back out after awarding bid package 2, the other part of bid package 2 last month. We went back out with just a landscape piece, which is before you tonight. And the good news is, we anticipated spending roughly $675,000 on this. And the low qualified bidder was J.W. Christmas at $582,838.25. So that is roughly just over $90,000 we've saved compared to the original estimate. So we're pretty happy to see that. We've done the post-bid interview. We're ready to, we're not doing anything with landscaping this year, but we're ready to move ahead with the contract and just asking for the board's support.
That total contract amount, $5 million?
$582,838
That's
and 25
that
cents.
particular one, but are you also looking for the land balancing contract tonight?
The land balancing contract was already approved.
I beg your pardon?
Yeah, this was the piece that was missing.
Because we didn't have the bid.
That's right. And so we had nobody bidding, and then when you put it back out, we had a few bidders, and I think you can see, I think the bid tab's included in my
Yeah, they are.
old eyes here. There's four bidders. J.W. Christmas was a low qualified bidder, and like I said, we beat the estimate by over $90,000. So that puts us in a really good spot. On the overall site work, I think we were about 8,000 under on the overall site work. So we're roughly 100,000 under, I think. And that's before we look at some other changes.
Right.
So we're doing really well on the site work
Going in the right
piece.
direction.
That's right.
Yeah. So, okay, thank you. Okay, so looking for a motion. Mr. Powell.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, I move to award the contract. Let's see, is it listed here? award the contract for
Utilities and sites.
utilities and landscaping
Nope, yep, right
He's
here.
got it.
Has he
He's
got
got
that
it.
one? Okay.
for an amount not to exceed $582,838.25.
As a form of a motion, I have support from Mr. Roman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Just a quick under discussion, they are a first-rate company. We're going to be very,
good.
very pleased.
That's good to know.
Very pleased
I'm
with them.
familiar with them, but I don't
Yes.
know much about them.
They are first-rate people.
I mean, I know a little bit about them. Okay, second reading, rezoning request for parcel 1216200-030 Haley Road. Mr. O'Neill.
So this is second reading on a very straightforward rezoning request. If you remember, this is the property off of Haley Road that had split zoning, a portion of it being ag and a portion of it being suburban farm. The request was to just uniformly rezone the property to suburban farm. This cleared the planning commission, I think with a unanimous vote, and then it was here for first reading last month. Really, it's pretty straightforward. It's consistent with the master plan, and I think will yield one more additional buildable parcel, which I know was one of the concerns of the neighbors that came out, that the property would be overbuilt, but.
Well, there was a subdivision going in there.
Right, lots of rumors get started and, social media.
On
can-
Facebook, it's got to be true.
Yeah, social media can be good and it can be not so good. So, pretty straightforward. This would be the second reading or the adoption of the rezoning request.
Any questions from the board? If not, I recommend adoption for parcel number 12-16-200-030 Haley Road. Make that in the form of a motion.
Support?
I have motion, I have support by Mr. Powell. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay. Civic Center update. Well, we've been busy. We've had
9 bids.
there was like 9, yes, Monday. Monday, there was 9, they weren't bid openings, but they were post-bid interviews. And then last week, it was just a solid 3 days of post-bid interviews, lining up the contractors, filtering them out, finding out what they can do, what they can't do. I've been through this before, Mr. Powell's been through this before, but for example, I'll give you an example. There was a particular contractor that bid drywall and steel studs. And there was a certain area in the building that I think there was some lack of clarity. So there might have been a little area there and they looked at that and I think they got it worked out. There was another contractor who was a casework contractor. Casework to the public is cabinets and hard goods, things that are built into the building, not just, the desk and the furniture, but, a bookcase and a built-in kitchen the cabinets and things of nature in the copy room and stuff like that. And as they were going through it, Aaron is good. He is good.
Yes, he is.
Okay, and he was going through the whole thing and he popped out and this particular gentleman missed about 8 or 10 items. Now, they were all small, but nonetheless, it ends up at a job, when you're at the job and you're at that stage going, well, I didn't know we were putting a shelf in the shower room, in the PD decon room, Oops. So now you're running in circles, and then when you have 10 or 12 of those things, it creates a problem. So they were caught up. The vendor was given the opportunity either to withdraw or execute, and I didn't hear the last update because we gave him some time to go back and look at his plan. But the good thing for him is he also bid on some other work in the building in another section. And, that's what's going on there? Okay. And I think they're gonna be okay. But it's very interesting because you get to see all the little nuances and all the information. And we as a staff, sitting in these meetings, we get to see the efficiency of McCarthy and Smith. And I will tell you, they are watching everything, okay? So that's where we stand at. Mike, you got anything you want to add?
No, I've been very, very pleased, quite frankly, with the process and with the end result. Looking forward to getting the earthwork started.
Michael,
Yeah, so far, now, these are not final numbers, but from kind of what we're gathering, the public safety building is gonna come in around $1 million over from what we budgeted, and the township hall is looking, I'm gonna say about $1.5 million to $2 million under.
Under almost
So,
three.
yeah, so far, good news, and I would credit Aaron Phillips with doing an amazing job, because his estimates have been just spot on. Yeah, we're getting there, and it's really exciting.
Elizabeth Lake Road, curbs are in, okay, up to the library. The roundabout curb is in. A couple little things got, again, that's why we need to have full-time inspectors, okay, because we had an area, and Mr. Powell will recall this, when we were at the last meeting at the Road Commission with all of the makers there, there was a consideration for the distance from the entry-exit point of the roundabout. And they wanted to reduce the parking area there. And I said, the whole idea is to have this parking. And they said, well, if you want to have the parking, then we have to change the geometry. And if it was just going to, it didn't throw a monkey wrench in the works. It threw a 5-foot monkey wrench in the works. So we looked at each other, we started thinking, and Mike and I kind of looked at each other, and one of the guys goes, well, compact car parking, and one of the engineers said, no way, no one will pay attention to that. So I said, motorcycle parking.
Yes.
So we're going to have dedicated motorcycle parking pads within that area down there that would be specific, and that's going to be a concrete pad about 8 or 10 inches thick, and it'll be great because of those of you who have ridden, you never ever want to put your bike kickstand down on hot asphalt in an August afternoon. The results are not good. So this will make it inviting for people to come down there. It'll also give us what Mike and I figured, a good snow stack area.
Absolutely.
That we're going to need a little extra space down there in the wintertime. The leveling course is going to go down Thursday, okay? This Thursday. Leveling course goes in Thursday. Compaction test is tomorrow at 2 o'clock.
Awesome.
And we're going to be off to the races. And the reconfiguring will happen through there. The Vector truck, I had to sign an additional work authorization for a Vector truck excavation where the light poles go, because they are in extremely close proximity to the gas main, the 6-inch gas main. And for those of you who do not know what that means, a Vector truck is a large truck that's a giant vacuum cleaner. You've seen them for cleaning out drains and culverts. They're also used in close quartered excavation when there are other utilities there, so you don't damage anything. So that's going to be put in place. The conduits are running. We should have a lot more of that up and running. Within the next 2 to 3 weeks, the library will switch to alternate access from Town Center Drive and the roundabout and a temporary road through the property so that we can tear out the rest of the road bed and get that put together. Yes, sir.
I just want to really quick, before you jump to trustee comments, add something on the building process. The post-bid interviews will conclude next week.
Yes.
Some of them had to be pushed out a bit. And just so you can mark your calendars, the bid award, we intend the bid award to happen at the September 17th meeting. But because there'll be a lot of information to digest, and we can't do that in a regular meeting, really, we're going to have a special township board meeting tentatively on the 10th of September. Got to confirm some dates, but that's when Aaron is suggesting we do it, which will give all of you a chance to go through all of the bids and hear about all the post-bid interviews and be able to ask questions and get information before you're expected to take action on what will be, I forget how many, dozens of contracts technically that are really going to be McCarthy and Smith contracts, but you're going to be paying for it. So that's kind of what the schedule looks like. And then the committee, the day-to-day committee of 3 of you and some staff will be meeting with Aaron, I guess, after the Labor Day holiday to kind of get everything in order prior to your special meeting on the 10th. So just so you know, that's how those dates will stack up in September for those contracts.
Great.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go into trustee comments. Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So in 8 years, I have the most exciting trustee comment that my husband and I welcomed a beautiful, perfect, and healthy baby girl this month. So that's wonderful.
What's her name?
Grace.
Grace.
Yeah. And so that's, I'm a little sleepy today, so I apologize for being quiet, but we're still in the newborn stage. And then I want to congratulate everyone here on the board that's been reelected and looking forward to working together with you all for another 4 years. The library reading party was a great success in the beginning of August. And as Supervisor Cole mentioned, that you still will be able to get to the library through the construction period. And then I want to congratulate the youth that went through the Fire Youth Academy program. That warmed my heart to see them use the library and use the community room, because that's what we had always envisioned, that that room was for everybody and could use multi-use for the community. So that was great to see. And then lastly, I just want to give a shout out to Lisa, who will be sworn in as Vice President of the Michigan Bar Association next month. So congratulations to you early. And that's really quite an
I'm
honor.
actually the
So,
vice president now.
Oh,
I will be sworn in as the president.
oh, I'm sorry. I misspoke. I'm sorry.
thank
The
you.
president.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
Are our rates going up?
Yep.
Not yet.
Yeah, they are.
that's all I
you.
have. Yep.
Liz.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Andrea?
Thank you. Just want to remind everyone that the Fisk Farm Fall Festival is September 7th and 8th from 10 to 5. I would love to see all my fellow board members there. The Fun Fire Department Open House is the 15th, so you can have some fun right here in White Lake Township on the 15th from 1 to 3. And once again, I'll take some of Liz's words and say thank you to the residents of White Lake for giving me another 4 years. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, thank you. So on August 15th, after our special meeting, the Planning Commission met, and we looked at the Lake Point reapproval, which we saw here tonight, and then we started to talk about the capital improvement plan. And I'm sure I'll be talking to Aaron about his, what was it, backhoe machine?
It's been in there for 6 or 7 years now.
The backhoe?
Yeah,
Really?
just moving forward.
I thought it was funny that you called it a backhoe machine instead
Yeah.
of just a backhoe.
Oh, well,
Oh.
that's what we had in Waterford when we wrote that original version of that in 2016.
All right. The Planning Commission will meet again on September 5th. And thank you to everybody who got up and voted. I appreciate being reelected. And congratulations to everyone else and to Liz on your baby girl.
Thank you.
Mr. Noble?
Congratulations, Liz, on your baby girl. And I'd just like to thank the citizens of White Lake for reelecting all of us back. And we have one additional member in the audience that was elected, Steve Anderson. And just like to thank Elaine Holmeister, our Director of Finance. We go in, Rick, myself, or Mike, in a moment's notice. She stops what she's doing. She gives us the numbers. She gives us the truth. That'd be one of the most honest people we could have. I mean, is in that position. She's amazing and goes out of her way to provide all of our departments information for our budgets, and they're able to assist us at a moment's notice. And I'm lucky, and I know all the board members feel very lucky to have her. And that's it.
Goes back to quality employees. Okay. Team members, I'll say, not employees. Mr. Roman?
Well, I ran into a priority waste driver today, and I stopped him, and we had a little discussion. And he said they still have a lot of vehicles in need of repairs. But they are doing what they can to try to get the job done with what they have. So he seemed like he was legitimate, and they're really trying. I want to thank my deputy, Kim Patton, for all the work you're doing on the BSA cloud implementation. I could not have a better deputy, so thank you, Kim. Taxes are due 9/14, very early. Thank you for reminding me to say that. So September 14th is the last day that you can pay your taxes here at the township without penalty or interest. And lastly, I wanted to give a very special congratulations to White Lake Township resident and Lakeland graduate Grace Stark for finishing 5th in the world in the Olympic finals in the 100-meter women's high hurdles. So proud of you.
Amen.
Once an Olympian, always Olympian. Great job, girl. That's all I had.
Thank you. Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and I'd like to, first of all, point out something that I've always wondered about. I've always wondered why politicians from Arizona and North Dakota and Florida and all the other states ask for money in Michigan or any other state. And I've always thought that if those politicians were doing their job properly and represented their community, then they shouldn't have to get money from Michigan in order to run in their own state.
Run into their neighbor, not in their backyard.
Yeah, exactly. And so I did find out, however, that politics is a very unique occupation in that you don't necessarily get rewarded for giving time or positions, that at least personally, you have to spend money and you have to walk neighborhoods, shake hands, because the past really isn't looked at like maybe it should be. That being said, the residents have decided that it's time for me to retire, and my wife's not unhappy because we can certainly spend more time together. But I have 2 more meetings after tonight that I will be part of this board, and I thank this board, and congratulations to all of you that were reelected.
You're not quitting the ZBA, are you?
I would very much like to still offer my services, my knowledge, my experience to White Lake Township. That's up to this board and the administrator and the supervisor as to how much more I am able to offer White Lake Township. But I thank the over 1,700 voters that voted for me, and thank you very much. And I am accepting my retirement as the voters have offered me. So thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Well, no 2 meetings are alike. I don't know how many meetings I've chaired on now, quite a few. But it's just been an interesting experience, and I am going to be here for another 4 years, taking the helm again. And I appreciate the fact that people are confident in myself and my fellow board members. And I have a high level of confidence in Mr. Powell also. And he's been extremely helpful on some of our subcommittees that we have set up to help resolve some of the issues that we have in the township that most of the public are not even aware of. They're just don't have a clue. And it's not through any fault, but that's just the things in the background that are happening that allows you to flush your toilet, et cetera, et cetera. So those things are important. So we're going to work out some sort of a relationship to make sure that we have some level of involvement. You might be out in the pasture, but you're not going to be on the back 40.
Okay, thank you,
So
Mr. Supervisor.
that's helpful. A priority, I want to talk about priority real quick. I know everybody raised holy hell there over the process of the garbage trucks, and it was frustrating to everyone here, and we would tell people, just be patient, because there really wasn't a whole heck of a lot the township could do. We had folks that were reading into the contract and thinking you can do this and you can do that, and there's so many convoluted little avenues to this. It was very difficult for the township to make any changes, and frankly, when 70 communities in southeastern Michigan changed their carrier, there's not a whole lot of options to go out to. And because of the contractual agreements, other companies don't necessarily want to get involved. et cetera, et cetera. There's so much mechanics to it that it's insane. So we had to give them an opportunity to improve, and improve they have. They still have a few bugs they're getting ironed out. They will have more trucks on the road within the next month or so. But you know, about 2-3 weeks ago, at the peak of the madness, okay, this gentleman, it was hotter than Hades out, okay? There was one guy driving, and I didn't recognize him because I usually see the same people on the truck. And I happened to go home for lunch, and I see this guy, and he's kind of trying to figure things out, and he looked really frazzled. So I went in the house, I got a water and I got a Coke, and I came out and I had it in a box, a little box in my hand, and I walked to the curb, and he was coming out from the other street, and he goes, I gotta do the other side of the street yet. And he was like in a panic mode, and I said, no, wait a minute. And I walked across the street, and I gave him the Coke and the water, and you would think I gave that guy like a winning lotto ticket. I mean, he was just like, he didn't know how to take it. And the next time around, I happened to see him coming down the driveway, and the guy honked his horn. So you gotta give these people a break. They're working men and women out there. They're trying to make a living. They have a tough job. When it gets hot out, it's even tougher, okay? And then when you're in an area that you're not familiar, you've got to build all this in. So we'll give them a little time. They're starting to get things ironed out. The calls have subsided substantially. We had, I wish Dave was here because he would confirm, I think we had 170 calls in a 3-day period.
Wow. 90 a day. We're getting 90 a day.
Yeah, the girls were going nuts because they couldn't do anything else, but they're trying to get the residents to understand. And some people were pretty good. Some real good White Lake people are really good, and other people, I'm not sure, but they're not that good. We'll just leave it at that. So tonight, I will say I am blessed to be here and to serve this community and look forward to the year ahead. And with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
I have motion, I have support. All in favor? Aye. Motion for close.